Chapter 4:06. In the darkness, no one could see each other's faces clearly, just like that night in Florida a few months ago. The soft bed, the familiar body, the whispered words of love. He was venting all of his longing and love, drowning her like a tidal wave. She begged for mercy again and again, enjoying the pleasure of her lower body while enduring the pain of her waist being hit. She had to pinch his arm and complain incessantly. What the hell? What's wrong with you? But he had no intention of stopping, nor did he have the slightest intention of explaining. Yi Huanyan only felt that her waist and abdomen were numb. Her whole body was like a folding chair. She had been in the position of being folded for too long and was about to lose consciousness. At the moment, she couldn't care about her face and shouted, "Han, spare me. I can't take it anymore." This Han made Ling Han's movements slow down, but a certain place where their bodies were intertwined still maintained a close connection. It was like being cut into pieces, rubbing little by little, but it was even more deadly. Yi Huanyan's 10 toes were all curled up. She looked at the man who tortured her in front of her with a face like a peach blossom. She gasped for a long time and barely exhaled. "If you want to kill or cut, just give me a quick death." A dangerous voice came from above, pausing after each word. "Is Naaneo my son?" Her eyes were sluggish. Although she knew that Ling Han couldn't see her face at the moment, her head couldn't help but move 2 inches to the side of the pillow, trying to avoid face-to-face contact. In this matter, she was indeed guilty. After all, he had the right to know. She didn't speak, only feeling a fine friction coming from inside her body. At first, she thought that he was going to withdraw, but before he could go out, he pushed in again. When he brushed past a certain sensitive spot, she couldn't help but let out a broken sound, waiting for the habitual pleasure. But unexpectedly, he stopped again. He patiently rubbed her bit by bit, deliberately not giving her satisfaction. Whether it was physically or mentally, at this moment, she felt like thousands of ants were crawling over her, numb and itchy. She gritted her teeth and trembled as she grasped the bed sheets under her body. Her voice was broken. "Yes, yes, yes, it's your son. Be gentle. It hurts." His movements became gentle again. He picked her up from the pillow and put his hands around her waist, sharing each other's breaths at a close distance. His voice was low, his breath hot. "All these years, are you still waiting for me?" Yi Huanyan lay on his shoulder, panting. The heat from her lower body was still in her body. This sitting position was very deep, and his twitching from time to time made her unable to stop. At this moment, there was no time to think about other things. She made up her mind and confessed everything. And his sudden appearance seemed to have picked up her heart that had sunk to the bottom of the valley and hung it up in the sky with a full moon. Her heart was wild with joy. Even though she was drowned by his passion and covered by the darkness of the room, only she knew how fast the heart under her chest was beating. Chun-In bit her hand and squatted in the toilet for a long time. The medicine she took finally took effect. When she came out of the bathroom with trembling legs, she didn't see the person who was supposed to be in the room. She touched her hair and looked at the empty living room with a puzzled expression. She clearly remembered that Sister Yan Yan was back. Didn't Ling Han come before? A strange sound came from the guest bedroom opposite. She was stunned. Just as she was about to go over, the door of the master bedroom suddenly opened, attracting her attention. "I'm hungry." Naaneo was wearing pink pajamas and tugged at the corner of her clothes. "Then I'll call you to order food." She was about to call room service when she said that. Naaneo was still tugging at her clothes and said seriously, "Let's go downstairs to eat. The food is cold when they send it up." "What's cold? It's almost 30 degrees outside today." Chun-In didn't care and dragged him to the landline in the living room. Las Vegas was so hot that it was exploding. Why would they send cold food in such a small place? "The hotel's air conditioning is cold." A faint voice came from behind. Seeing that he was so persistent, Chun-In had to do as he said, but she couldn't help but frown. "What's wrong with you today? You usually cry and beg when I ask you to go out. You're so cooped up that you're moldy. Today, you want to go out by yourself. What's that sound?" Chun-Ing raised her head and looked at the opposite room in confusion. Let's go, let's go. I'm hungry. Nan-Neo held her hand and almost ran out of the room, closing the door behind him. Hey, ancestor, I didn't bring a room card. Get someone to open the door after dinner. I didn't bring my wallet. In the evening, in a suburban church, Ling Han and Yi Huanyan appeared at the same time, which shocked the crew. After all, the news of Ling Han's wedding today was still very clear to them, especially the staff who happened to be filming here. The chaos in the church in the morning obviously hadn't spread. Everyone took it for granted that Ling Han should be on his way to his honeymoon. Of course, there were still people in the crew who were calm, such as Guan Nai and Su Nianhua. When Yi Huanyan appeared holding Ling Han's arm, Guan Nai only glanced at them and reached out to Shang Anren. 1,000 yuan, I win. Shang Anren took a deep breath and reached for his wallet. He took out a stack of bills, counted them, and handed them to Guan Nai. What are you doing? Yi Huanyan looked confused. Nothing. Su Nianhua curled his lips and glanced at Shang Anren. Someone's evil intentions are not dead yet. As soon as he heard this, Shang Anren jumped up from his chair. Don't pour dirty water on me. That's one thing. It's just a bet. What? Yi Huanyan looked at them in confusion. Shang Anren stood up straight. When he saw Ling Han, his eyes narrowed a little. He calmed himself down and raised 3 fingers, looking like he was going to swear. You said that we'll write off what happened in the past, so I'll take it that you're sincere. They made a bet last night at dinner, and I just said something casually. I didn't mean any harm, so don't get me wrong. Yi Huanyan was even more confused when he saw how serious he was. What bet? Guan Nai fanned herself leisurely with a handful of bright red banknotes in her hand. She looked at Ling Han with a meaningful gaze. What else could it be? We're betting that you won't rob the wedding today. Rob the wedding? Yi Huanyan's face froze. Guan Nai continued. You changed hotels in a hurry yesterday afternoon and stayed so close to here. Weren't you planning to rob the wedding? And now everyone can see the situation. Since you've already robbed the wedding, there's no need to hide it. Although the plot is a little tacky and old-fashioned, it's fine as long as you have the wedding. Guan Nai had always been one to shock people to death with her words. This time, Yi Huanyan was at a loss for words. What the hell was going on? Chapter 407. The final scene of Remaining Life came to a perfect end at a church in the suburbs of Las Vegas. Yi Huanyan raised her hand and shouted into the intercom. Okay, this one passed. The final scene came to an end. In the camera, Guan Nai, dressed in a white veil, and Su Nianhua, dressed in a suit and leather shoes, were both smiling blissfully. When the entire crew was taking group photos after filming, Yi Huanyan was busy calling for everyone to gather and take photos, so the scene was a little chaotic. Su Nianhua saw Ling Han standing in the distance and hesitated for a few seconds before walking up to him. Why aren't you taking photos? Seeing Su Nianhua, Ling Han's gaze froze slightly. I'm not part of your crew, so there's no need for that. Since you're so formal, why did you come over? Ling Han glanced at him. There are too many men in the crew, so I'm afraid some of them won't give up. You're talking about me? Su Nianhua asked directly. All these years, my daughter is the same age as your son. Do you still think that I can't forget Yin Yin? Ling Han didn't say anything. Times had changed, and Yi Huanyan's return made the thorn in Su Nianhua's heart disappear. He only felt lucky that she could come back because her return also gave him peace of mind, the kind of peace of mind that he could spend the rest of his life with Zheng Ro. Su Nianhua rubbed his forehead, looking a little tired. So many people think that I can't forget her. Sometimes it even makes me dazed, and I ask myself if I should be so devoted to her from the start. It's as if I have to pester her until the end for it to be the end. The hot wind brushed past him, and his clothes fluttered. Ling Han still didn't say anything. But I think you're all wrong. Just like how Yin Yan's brother used to love Su Ku, but now he's with Xiaoyu, Gu Xinian, and I have one thing in common, which is that we don't spend much time with the people we used to love, and we feel a lot of guilt. After so many years of chasing each other, We can't tell whether it's to make up for it or for love, or maybe it's both. I did love Yan Yan, but that was 15 or 16 years ago. For the next 10 years, I felt guilty, and for the next 5 or 6 years, I blamed myself. It has nothing to do with love, so you don't think too much about it. Ever since Yi Huanyan disappeared 5 years ago, Ling Han and Sun Yanhua had always been at odds in the company. In the past few years, his career had been on the decline, and he wasn't easy to get along with. He had caused a lot of trouble for pleasure, and even though Ling Han was cold and distant to him on the surface, he was still very tolerant of him in private. And it was all for Yi Huanyan's sake. So after all this, Sun Yanhua realized that he had to return the favor he owed him for so many years. This reassuring pill had to be given to a paranoid person like him. Ling Han, however, had an indifferent expression. After a while he said, "I'm not talking about you." Sun Yanhua's heart skipped a beat. He followed his clear gaze and looked into the distance. Yi Huanyan was holding onto Yi Huanyan's arm for a selfie with the second male lead, Bai Ting. Bai Ting had been very popular recently and was known as the nation's school hunk. He didn't seem to have any scandals about him, so this intimate gesture was rare. Sun Yanhua's face paled. No way, his explanation just now seemed like a joke, but Ling Han didn't want to give him a way out. He said casually, "I don't think you're a threat to me." Sun Yanhua's face paled even more. He suddenly said indignantly, "Then how is he a threat?" Ling Han didn't even look at him. He spat out 2 words. Young. Sun Yanhua and Yi Huanyan were the same age, but Ling Han was 8 years older than them. He was 40 years old now, so he was a little jealous of others' youth. Sun Yanhua's smile stiffened. Bai Ting had just graduated and was in his early 20s. Whether compared to Ling Han or him, he was young enough. I was very young back then too. He pulled the corners of his mouth and tried to maintain his politeness. Ling Han seemed to have been reminded. He muttered to himself for a few seconds and suddenly relaxed. He smiled. "Yeah, then Yan Yan probably likes older guys." "What?" Sun Yanhua's face turned pale. He felt that he had nothing better to do than to come and comfort Ling Han. He was definitely out of his mind. "Hey, Brother Hua, come and take a picture." The stage supervisor's voice called Sun Yanhua over. Ling Han looked at Yi Huanyan, who was surrounded by people, with a smile in the corner of his eyes. "Still not giving up? I'm afraid you don't have the ability." The crew of Remaining Life officially wrapped up filming that day under Ling Han's watch. After that, the crew returned to China and started non-stop post-production editing in order to be released as a New Year's movie. The post-production editing work only required Yi Huanyan to take a look occasionally, so she had a lot of free time. "Hey, didn't all your relatives come to the wedding? How did they deal with it?" Ling Han narrowed his eyes and tilted his head from the spacious plane seat to look at the woman leaning on his shoulder. He said, in a very casual tone, "Who told you they were my relatives? Who did you see?" Among Ling Han's relatives, Yi Huanyan was familiar with some of them. Ling Dongyu's family was the only one she could remember by name. She had seen his grandfather's relatives a few times, but she couldn't remember their names. But the meaning behind his words couldn't help but surprise Yi Huanyan. "Didn't you send out the invitations? Do we need real relatives for a fake wedding?" The corners of Ling Han's mouth curled up, revealing a sly smile. From the beginning, he didn't take this wedding seriously, so regarding the invitation, the only person who actually received it was Secretary Dong. She even ran around to help him find Asian extras in Las Vegas to make up the numbers. Yi Huanyan only had 2 words for Ling Han's behavior: sly old fox. "If I didn't do this, my relatives and friends would attend this wedding, and then our wedding soon after. It doesn't matter if most people are too lazy to explain, but I have to explain to my grandparents and second uncle's family. I'm not afraid of the trouble, but I'm afraid you'll find it troublesome." His voice lingered in her ears. She had just drunk a glass of orange juice from a stewardess, so even her breath was filled with the fresh scent of oranges. Naaneo's attitude towards Ling Han was much better. When they boarded the plane, she was hugged by him. Although she looked awkward, she didn't resist. This made Ling Han happy for a while. After that, he started to talk more. In contrast, Yi Huanyan felt like she had switched personalities with him. She was a little less talkative. What's wrong? Noticing her silence, Ling Han stopped talking and looked at her in confusion. Yi Huanyan said calmly, "Nothing. I just feel like you're more talkative today than usual." Ling Han's smile faded a little. He asked softly, "Was I very quiet in the past?" "Not really. The year I first came home, and after that." Yi Huanyan suddenly stopped talking. The two of them fell silent as if they had agreed to it. Ling Han was actually not a particularly quiet person. He grew up overseas and was deeply influenced by Western capitalism. When he first came back to China, he was actually a sunny and humorous person. Chapter 408. When Jiang Milin and her mother first came to the Ling family, Ling Han did not treat them well. After all, when Qingwan had just passed away for less than half a year, Ling Dongming suddenly brought in a pair of mother and daughter, and did not even inform him beforehand. This made him somewhat uncomfortable. So that year, he did not return home much and lived alone outside. If it wasn't for the fact that the old madam wanted to see him during the new year, with his personality, he probably did not intend to have any interaction with Yi Huanyan and the others. That year, in Yi Huanyan's eyes, he was a taciturn person and an ice-cold older brother who was not easy to get along with. And after 8 years of companionship, his original bright and charming characteristics were exposed bit by bit. In those 8 years, he was her omnipotent big brother Ling Han. After that, Ling Dongming and Jiang Milin passed away in a car accident, and he accidentally found Wen Qingwan's diary. Such a big mess was directly placed on his head. Before he could find any way to vent, Yi Huanyan bumped into him and climbed into his bed without a care in the world, shouting that she wanted to marry him. How much he loved her before, how much he hated her after that, and how much he regretted it after that. Ling Han did not dare to think about how much damage these cruel times had brought her. When he thought about the details of the past, he felt that he was not worthy of her anymore. He used to talk a lot in the past, but it was also in those 2 years that you became less talkative. Ling Han continued, but there was bitterness in his voice. "Yan, I'm sorry." The person in his arms stiffened. After a while, there was a nasal laugh. "You might have to keep those 3 words. It's a little early to say it now. It's not too late to say it when we get there." Not long after that, Yi Huanyan felt a heavy force on her shoulder, followed by a low voice. This time they were going to the Four Seasons Manor. Yi Huanyan had just brought the film crew back to China for half a month. She had just finished explaining the editing process when she received news from her parents at the villa. Gu Heng had personally called her and wanted her to bring Ling Han back. At the same time, Wen Yi's dissatisfied grumbling could be heard from the other end of the phone. "Why did you bring him back? He dirted my house for no reason. I will beat that kind of person up every time I see him." Wen Yi didn't like Ling Han. She didn't hide this fact. She mumbled to Gu Ling, "I'll see how it goes. I'll ask him if he's free." As soon as he said this, Wen Yi became even more noisy, probably because the other end was on speaker. What is he busy with? What can a small company be busy with? If he wants to be my son-in-law, let him show some sincerity. Busy my ass. All right, his company isn't small. On the other end of the phone, Gu Ling was comforting her. She could hear the helplessness in her voice. Yan, regardless of whether he's busy or not, bring him here. Your brother will be back in 2 days. We can have a meal together as a family. Okay. Yi Huanyan had no choice but to agree. Before she hung up the phone, she heard Wen Yi shouting at the top of her lungs, "What family? Old Gu, you're getting more and more ridiculous with your words. Is that bastard our family?" After she hung up the phone, Yi Huanyan sighed faintly. Her family didn't like Ling Han so much because she looked like a ghost when she came back. And Ling Han couldn't shirk too much of the responsibility for that. She had originally planned to consider this matter after the movie was completed, but she hadn't expected Gu Heng to call her directly. And from Wen Yi's words, even if she didn't like Ling Han, since he had the intention of reconciling with her daughter, she couldn't hide it from them. She had to go through them first. After they got off the plane, the Gu family arranged for a car to pick them up and take them to the dock. The Four Seasons villa was on the island, so it was considered private property. Without the Gu family's cruise ship, it was basically impossible to get there. When Ling Han first came here, he waited bitterly for a week in Los Angeles. Thinking about it, that was a few months ago. Before entering the villa, Yi Huanyan gave Ling Han a heads up. My mom has a short temper. My brother said that it's all because my dad spoiled her. You have to go along with her later. No matter what bad things she says about you, don't go against her. Ling Han smiled bitterly. Do I look like I have that kind of confidence? But you don't have to go along with her too much. You should avoid her when you need to. My mom is the vice president of the Pistol Association. She's the president. Nan Ao, who was holding Yi Huanyan's hand, corrected her. Grandma told me about it in a video call last night. She's been a full-time employee for a long time. It's okay. Even if she really shoots me twice, I won't dodge. Hearing this, Yi Huanyan's eyes trembled slightly. Along the way, she deliberately said a lot of things about how her parents were difficult to get along with. In fact, she just wanted to scare Ling Han and play a joke on him. She didn't expect him to be like this, so she didn't know what to say. Nanao curled the corners of her mouth and revealed a disdainful smile. Are you stupid? You didn't even dodge when you were hit. Grandpa definitely doesn't like you. Ling Han's eyes froze and she stuttered. Is that so? It was quite difficult to please everyone in the Gu family. For example, Yi Huanyan's biological brother, Gu Sinian, had a lot of hostility toward Ling Han. If she wanted to please him, she could only rely on Ji Xiaoye. Fortunately, Ji Xiaoye was his former employee, and he took good care of her. He had also helped her a lot in her work over the years, so he would reluctantly give her face. Besides, Yi Huanyan's biological mother, Wen Yi, was the only daughter of a world-class jewelry master and the only successor. It was not the first time she heard that she had a strange temper. This was related to her early experience of wandering around the world with her father in her early years. She had a very shrewd eye for people and was very difficult to deal with. Her father, Gu Heng, was now the behind-the-scenes leader of the Gu Financial Group. Although the entire financial group had been handed over to Gu Sinian, his two titles of Wall Street Financial Tycoon and Stock God were not just for show. Ling Han's impression of him stopped at the framed old newspapers of famous people in the world. One of them was already yellowed. At that time, it was still a black and white photo. In the photo, Gu Heng was gentle and elegant. This newspaper was an interview from the New York Times more than 30 years ago. It was also the only public information about Gu Heng. At the entrance of the villa, 6 different models of cars were parked in a threatening manner. In front of the car closest to Yi Huanyan and the others, 8 assistants wearing white gloves and suits stood in 2 rows in front of the car door. They were all dressed in the same uniform and looked very majestic. They had the posture of a gang. The leaders were the siblings Gu Lu and Gu Min. When they saw Yi Huanyan, they bowed respectfully at 90 degrees. Hello, 2nd Mississippi. Hello, young master. The people behind them also bowed in unison and shouted as if they had rehearsed. Hello, 2nd Mississippi. Hello, young master. This majestic array scared Yi Huanyan so much that her legs went weak. Gu Min was the closest to her and helped her up. 2nd Miss, are you okay? Are you seasick? Yi Huanyan glanced at her and thought to herself, I'm not seasick. I'm just seasick. What are these guys trying to do? Chapter 409. Yi Huanyan still wanted to turn around and say something to Ling Han, but Gu Lu had already stepped forward and stood in front of her, separating Ling Han from her. Yi Huanyan looked at Gu Lu's back and only heard him speaking to Ling Han in a voice that was much colder than usual. He looked like a fox exploiting the tiger's might. Mr. Ling, since it's your first time here, Madam asked me to show you around. Which car do you usually sit in? Good Lord. No wonder there were so many of the world's top 10 luxury cars lined up at the entrance. Yi Huanyan was blocked by Gu Lu, so she couldn't see Ling Han's expression. But when she heard this, she couldn't hold it in anymore. She wanted to take off her shoe and hit Gu Lu, who taught this nouveau riche to put on a show of strength. Up to you. I'm fine with anything. Ling Han's voice rang out. It passed through Gu Lu's huge body and landed in Yi Huanyan's ears. Gu Min had already pulled open the car door and invited her to get in. She was a little worried, but she still got into the car. When Ling Han was about to leave with Gu Lu, Nanao, who had been standing there without moving, suddenly poked his waist and smiled slyly. It's not too late for you to leave now. Ling Han didn't say anything. He raised his hand and patted his head. Then he turned around and glanced at Yi Huanyan, who had already gotten into the car. Coincidentally, Yi Huanyan was also looking at him. Their eyes met, and both of them revealed a tacit smile. The only difference was that Ling Han's smile was serious and certain, while Yi Huanyan's smile was a little helpless. Little master, get in the car. Coming. Nanao glanced at Ling Han one last time. His heart was filled with the feeling of being patted on the head by him just now. It was a little awkward, but not uncomfortable. After Nanao got into the car, Gu Min also got in before closing the door. Once the door was closed, Yi Huanyan's expression changed. She glared at her fiercely. Who came up with the search idea? Are you trying to disgust me or Ling Han? Gu Min's face was full of righteousness. She said in a deep voice, Second miss, actually this is a good way to show the power behind you. That way, you won't be bullied when you get married in the future. Even so, isn't this a little too vulgar? Who doesn't know about the Four Seasons villa? Who doesn't? If my father stomps his feet, all the domestic enterprises will collapse. Is there a need to do so much? This is, she said seriously to her, what if others think that you're not important in the gu to you? This closeness to the family can easily affect your status in the family after marriage. Yi Huanyan was about to refute when she suddenly realized that the woman in front of her, whose range of activities was limited to cleaning her gun and practicing shooting, was saying something that was out of line with her habits. She suddenly said in shock, That's not right. Gu Min, who told you all this nonsense? Don't you usually only play with guns? Gu Min lowered her head slightly and looked a little embarrassed. Young master and young madam are back. Xiaoyu told you. I think young madam makes a lot of sense. Bullsh *T cents. Yi Huanyan pursed her lips. So, she was the one who came up with all these bad ideas, right? Gu Min hesitated for a few seconds. It must be her idea, Yi Huanyan directly asserted. After taking a deep breath, she angrily took out her phone and called Ji Xiaoyu. Before she could speak, a noisy voice came from the other end of the line. Io. Yin Yen, I just heard that you got into the car at the entrance. It's only such a short journey, and you can't wait. Why didn't you call me when you missed me? Cut the crap. What's going on with that messy convoy and those people at the entrance? Was it your idea? I felt it. How is it? Do you want to praise me? What's with Ling Han's expression? Is he so scared that he's trembling? Yi Huanyan was speechless. She sat up straight and said, Don't tell me you have a grudge against him. When you were a secretary at his company, he gave you a lot of free wages. I don't like what you're saying. I didn't do what Mom asked me to do, because we're old acquaintances. If you knew what Mom's original plan was, you should thank me. I took a step back to remind her about that little trick at the door. You're still being reasonable. My bread is going to burn. Uncle Sinian, come and answer your sister's call. Calling Gu Sinian uncle was something between Ji Xiaoya and Gu Sinian, but in Yi Huanyan's ears, it was very unpleasant. It wasn't until a clear voice sounded on the other end that the mess in her mind diluted. Yen Yen, you're back? Brother, aren't you spoiling your wife too much? When I first brought her into the family, I put in a good word for her. Why is it that when it comes to Ling Han, all of you are in cahoots? Yi Huanyan went straight to the point and asked coldly, What else do you plan to do? Mom and Dad can just scold her a little. Don't hurt her self-esteem. Based on the situation at the door, it was hard to imagine the humiliating things that would happen later. After Yi Huanyan finished venting, Gu Sinian controlled his temper and spoke. As soon as he opened his mouth, he laughed and was choked by Yi Huanyan. You're still laughing? Xiao Yu's temper is going to explode. After marrying you, she won't be my best friend anymore, right? I'm going to cut ties with her. That's enough. Gu Sinian was afraid that she would continue talking until she reached the entrance of East Park. So he interrupted her. Even if you cut ties with her, she's still your sister-in-law. Are you done yelling? If you're done, listen to me. If you're in a good mood, I'll tell you what Mom and Dad think. Yi Huanyan didn't even falter. That's enough. She had learned this trick from Ji Xiaoye. Once she was done yelling, the other party would be annoyed and would naturally stop beating around the bush. Wouldn't they tell you everything? This trick was most effective on Gu Sinian. It could be seen from Ji Xiaoye. However, after hearing Gu Sinian talk about her mother's plan, Yi Huanyan really couldn't bring herself to laugh. She hung up the phone and hurriedly called Ling Han. A puzzled voice came from the other end. Hello? Yan Yan Yu. Don't say anything else. Get Gu Lu to take you. Turn around and say you're not going. We're going back to Lan River. The other end was silent for a few seconds. What's wrong? Don't ask. My dad is easy to talk to, but my mom's temper is really hard to deal with. Let's go, let's go. If there's a chance in the future, I'll think of a way to bring you here. As Ling Han listened to the phone, he raised his head and glanced at the people in the distance who were gesturing at him with darts. His expression was still calm. It's okay, Yan Yan. I'm going to see your mother soon. Hello, you dash. Before Yi Huanyan could emphasize the seriousness of this matter, the other end of the line had already hung up. Ling Han switched off his phone and looked at the black cloth in Gu Lu's hand. Do you want me to cover my eyes? Gu Lu nodded and picked up the black cloth. Cover your eyes first, in case you can't take it. If you shake and hurt yourself, we won't be able to explain it to 2nd Mississippi. Chapter 410. There's no need. Just do it. Ling Han didn't even seem to change the rhythm of his breathing. He stood ramrod straight in front of the giant red and blue target with a diameter of 2 meters. His gaze pierced through the air and landed on the figure sitting on the sofa opposite him. Why don't you do it yourself? Otherwise, it might not be enough to vent your anger. Wan Yi's hand that was holding the coffee paused for a moment. When she looked up, there was a cold mist in her eyes. You better put away your tricks in front of me. The trick of injuring yourself to gain my sympathy? That won't work on me. When Wan Yi was young, she had a very fiery temper. After meeting Gu Heng, her temper improved a lot. Now that she was at home, she had developed a spoiled and lazy personality. She was gentle and didn't get angry easily. This was because she didn't dare to have any troublesome matters placed in front of her. Ling Han's arrival was probably the second most troublesome matter in the past 32 years, after Yi Huanyan being kidnapped. Faced with such a rude attitude, Ling Han didn't even frown. He raised his wrist to look at the time and said unhurriedly, Yan Yan probably knows what you're going to do. She should be here soon. So if you really want to vent your anger, you should hurry up and do it. Wan Yi snorted coldly. She looked at Ling Han from the corner of her eyes. Is that so? So that's why you're so fearless? Ling Han frowned. He realized that no matter what he said at this moment, it would be wrong. He simply shut his mouth and didn't explain further. However, Wan Yi's voice kept coming from the headset. Then do you know how many shooting ranges there are in the villa? Are you close enough to my son and daughter-in-law to let them stand up for you and tell Yan Yan exactly which shooting range you're at? Ling Han still didn't say anything. His body, which was standing in front of the target, stiffened a little. Wan Yi got up from the sofa. She raised her hand and the bodyguard beside her handed her protective gear and a gun. Ling Han glanced at Gu Lu beside him. You're staying here? Gu Lu took 2 steps back and looked at Ling Han quietly without responding. While speaking, Wan Yi had already put on her ear protection and raised her pistol in the direction of Ling Han. In the middle of the open grassland, there were more than 10 targets lined up side by side with Ling Han. However, they were all normal-sized and not as large as the one behind him. Thinking that his future mother-in-law had specially tailored such a target for him, Ling Han unexpectedly revealed a trace of a smile. This smile caused Wen Yi to furrow her brows. Bang! When he fired the gun, the sound was not loud. The gun was equipped with a silencer, but it still made Wen Yi's palm tremble. The bullet flew out of the barrel and towards Ling Han. Bang! Almost instantly, Ling Han heard the sound of a wooden board being penetrated. Wood chips and dust danced in the air. This bullet passed close to his ear. He was on the brink of death. He only felt that his legs were a little numb from standing for too long. Actually, his mind couldn't describe what he was feeling. Perhaps it was because he had made all the preparations before he came and wanted the Gu family to agree at all costs. So when Gulu brought him to the shooting range and said that Yi Huanyan's mother wanted to use him as a target practice, he was even a little relieved. After all, this was an opportunity for him to vent his anger. Many times, when faced with helpless situations, it was acceptable to vent one's emotions. Yi Huanyan had ignored her family's objections and wanted to reconcile with him. This was something that couldn't be helped. Using him as a target practice was a way to vent her anger. He accepted it all. The second shot went off without him being prepared. This time, it hit the side of his waist. The target shook, but he still didn't move. At this moment, he could even smell a burning smell in his ears. The friction of the bullet passing through the wooden board made him feel like he was drilling wood to start a fire. The third shot was fired above his head. A cluster of sparks burst out like fireworks. He felt like his hair was being burned, but it disappeared very quickly, so it was fine. When he fired very quickly, he didn't even have time to react to these 3 shots. It wasn't considered torture. He originally thought that he would have to fire more shots, but Wen Yi's assistant rushed over and said something. She suddenly put down the gun and waved at him, gesturing for him to come over. Yi Huanyan pulled Gu Heng's arm and walked into the shooting range without any obstruction. Gu Heng was pulled so hard that his casual clothes were all over the place. Knowing that she was anxious, he comforted her. Wen Yi won't do anything to him. Yen, you don't have to be so anxious. Brother told me that Mom prepared a human target at the shooting range. She wants to use Ling Han as an experiment. That's your brother playing with you. Whether it's a joke or not, you'll know once you come with me. Hey, slow down. Your father's body isn't as good as it used to be. Yi Huanyan glanced at him from the corner of her eyes. It was the end of November, and the man could still wander outside in a thin hoodie. He had white hair on his temples, but his body was very strong and healthy. Now that he was nagging and deliberately slowing her down, it could be said that everyone knew what he was up to. He was covering up for Wen Yi, so obviously, because he wanted to protect his wife and cause trouble. Gu Heng was actually a witty and humorous person. However, in the 20 years that Yi Huanyan had been missing, he had become a person who did not like to smile. It could be seen from the fact that Gu Duo was very afraid of him. All these years at home, he was probably only nice to Wen Yi. Even Gu Xinian could not be bothered to talk to him. However, Yi Huanyan felt that Gu Heng was actually easier to talk to than Wen Yi. Wen Yi liked to do everything from her perspective for the sake of Yi Huanyan. However, Gu Heng was their daughter, so he always said the best. Yi Huanyan kicked the door of the shooting range open. After kicking it open, she ran to the shooting range and was stunned. Are you okay? Ling Han was sitting on the sofa, leisurely drinking coffee. Wen Yi was sitting opposite him. The two of them seemed to be chatting happily. When he saw that Yi Huanyan had arrived, he put down his cup and saw the man walking slowly behind Yi Huanyan. He was 9 meters tall, a head taller than Ling Han. He was burly and muscular. At first glance, one could tell that he was a martial artist. The gray hair on his temples did not weaken his aura. Instead, it added a sense of stability and vicissitudes. Hello, uncle. Ling Han stood up and felt inexplicably nervous. In the face of Wen Yi's imposing manner of shooting and throwing darts, he did not feel anything. However, when Gu Heng leisurely walked over, he felt pressured. How was it? I told you that nothing would happen, right? Gu Hong patted Yi Huanyan's shoulder with a smile at the corner of his mouth. He did not respond to Ling Han's greeting at all. When Yi lazily nestled on the sofa and looked up at the father and daughter in front of her. What are you two doing here in a hurry? Do you want to see me compete with Ling Han in shooting? Yi Huanyan looked around suspiciously. In the end, her gaze fell on Ling Han's face. Are you really competing with my mother in shooting? Ling Han smiled faintly and raised his hand to tuck her hair behind her ear. Yes. Chapter 4:11. Why? Do you think your mother will eat you up? When Yi pretended to be angry as she glanced at Yi Huanyan. Do I look that scary to you? Yi Huanyan took the opportunity to grab her arm and lay on the sofa. That's not what I meant. I haven't introduced him to you yet. I'm worried that you won't get along. What if I make you angry again? In your eyes, is your mother such a petty person? When Yi glared at her. Of course, my mother is the most gentle and reasonable person in the world. Yi Huanyan was probably born with a sweet mouth. At this moment, Yi Huanyan stuck to Wen Yi's shoulder like a piece of gum and couldn't be shaken off. Wen Yi did not want to shake her off either. She had not seen her daughter smile so happily in a long time. It was also rare for her to experience Yi Huanyan leaning on her and acting coquettishly. For a moment, she felt a little sad. If her daughter had grown up by her side, she would not have known how to act coquettishly and how clingy she would have been. When she thought of this, her attitude towards Ling Han softened a little. She patted Yi Huanyan on the back of her hand and said, "You can stay here if you want. You can be our judge." "Thank you, Mom." Yi Huanyan giggled. She rolled her eyes and turned to look at Gu Hong. "Dad, why don't you compete with Ling Han in shooting?" He had been busy talking to Wen Yi earlier and did not notice that Gu Hong had been standing there for a long time without any intention of sitting down. Since he did not want to sit down, Ling Han naturally did not sit either. He allowed the former god of stocks and future father-in-law to narrow his eyes and look up and down for a long time. "No, I have something to do. You guys go ahead." With that, Gu Hong left. From the beginning to the end, he didn't say a single word to Ling Han, not even a single tone. Even though Ling Han had mentally prepared himself, he now realized that Yi Huanyan's father-in-law, who was the easiest to deal with, was probably the most difficult one to deal with. If he didn't make a move, he naturally couldn't deal with it. When he fired a few shots at the target in the shooting range, the monitor next to her showed her results, which were very impressive. Ling Han and Yi Huanyan sat on the sofa and watched, chatting with each other. "Auntie's marksmanship is very good. How can it not be good? I've been practicing since I was young. In the past, I followed my grandfather to mine in the mines outside. In order to find some rare gems, we often got into conflicts with people. The places we went to didn't prohibit guns, so I learned how to shoot well." Yi Huanyan took a sip of tea and suddenly said mysteriously, "Let me tell you, before my mother met my father, she was actually an international wanted criminal for a period of time." Ling Han played along with her attitude and sat with a stunned expression. He lowered his voice and asked, "Really? Why?" "Although I don't quite believe it, I heard from my brother that when my mother was young, she was fancied by an Eastern European royal prince. In the end, she ran away before the wedding. After that, she was hunted down until she met my father. So that's how it is." Ling Han had a thoughtful look on his face. "You don't believe it either, right?" Yi Huanyan put down the teacup and smiled. "I don't believe it either. To put it bluntly, my father was just a slightly famous stock trader at that time. If my mother was really hunted down, what ability did he have to protect her? Going against the royal family? Isn't that stupid? My brother thinks I'm a child." As they spoke, Wen Yi had already removed her equipment and walked back. She stretched and looked at Yi Huanyan. "What are you talking about? I'm not at a tea party. Go and practice your marksmanship. Otherwise, you won't even have the ability to fight back if you're bullied in the future." Yi Huanyan raised her eyebrows. "Mom, spare me. I haven't even touched a gun before. Gu Min is over there. Let her teach you. I don't want to learn this, when he looked at her meaningfully. How about, when you get married, I'll let Gu Min be your dowry. That's more reliable than you learning it yourself. Yen Yen, go and play for a while. Ling Han spoke and looked at her comfortingly. His eyes flashed 3 words. I'm fine. Yi Huanyan then moved her, but unwillingly. She stood up and walked in the direction of Gu Min. In the past 5 years, Yen Yen spent very little time at the villa. More than half a year ago, after the surgery, she officially came back to stay for a month. After that, she went to Lanjiang. When Yi sat down, there was a hint of coldness in her voice. Ling Han frowned. I'll treat her well in the future. I was wrong in the past. You're thinking too simply. Let's not talk about this for now. You haven't gotten past her father yet. When he looked at him faintly, there was a hint of playfulness in her eyes. Didn't you think that I wouldn't be able to hit you when I fired those shots at you just now? Yen Yen said that your marksmanship is very good. Oh, just like that. You're sure that I won't hurt you? What if I do? Gulu only took 1 step back. The shooting range was so big. A person with bad marksmanship could hit anywhere. However, Gulu, who was usually the most reliable assistant by Gu Xinyan's side, only took a small step back under his instructions. It was clear that Gulu trusted Wen Yi's marksmanship very much. Wen Yi's gaze was complicated. It was mixed with admiration, but more than that, she was conflicted. If she didn't talk about what had happened in the past, based on his performance, just now, he completely met her standards of a son-in-law. His expression wouldn't change even if Mount Tai collapsed in front of him. He was organized and logical. He wasn't rash or timid. He was someone who could achieve great things. However, people who could achieve great things weren't necessarily people who were suited to stay at home. No one could guarantee that the same thing wouldn't happen again. Dinner was at Dongyuan Restaurant. Gu Xinian and Ji Xiaoye were also there. Na Neo had eaten too much dessert in the afternoon and was already asleep, so he didn't come. There were 6 people at the table. Gu Heng sat in the main seat. Ling Han sat in the last seat opposite him. Yi Huanyan sat opposite Wen Yi and Gu Xinian. There was clearly a seat next to Yi Huanyan, but because of the cutlery and the guidance of the servants, Ling Han was arranged to sit in a seat that was relatively distant from the rest of the Gu family. In Ji Xiaoye's words, it was so that he could be interrogated by the 3 authorities. After Gu Heng sat down, he said lightly, "There's nothing to entertain. It's just a normal meal. Everyone can do as they please." They could do as they please, but Ji Xiaoye and Yi Huanyan couldn't help but look in front of Ling Han. He was the only one who had a steak set in front of him, while the rest of them were sitting around a table of Chinese food. How could they do as they please? "Mom, this is too much." Yi Huanyan glanced at Wen Yi with an unpleasant expression. Wen Yi ignored her and smiled. "These are all home-cooked dishes. Our family prefers Chinese food, but we heard that Mr. Ling mostly eats Western food in China, so we specially prepared this meal for you. It's also to make you feel at home." Everyone couldn't help but stand up and applaud when they heard these official words. Even Ji Xiaoye looked a little embarrassed. She tugged at Gu Xinyan's clothes onto the table and said in a low voice, "Who arranged this? This isn't very nice, right?" Gu Xinian squeezed her hand and gave her a look that said, "It's none of our business." Chapter 412. Ling Han's voice broke the awkwardness that Yi Huanyan was unable to alleviate. "Thank you everyone, especially Uncle and Auntie, for putting in so much effort. I like it very much." For pairs of eyes focused on his face, but his expression remained the same. He leisurely folded the napkin and placed it on his lap. Then he picked up the glass of red wine beside him and looked at Gu Heng, the only one who was not looking at him. He was elegant, poised, and generous. He did not show any fear at all. Gu Heng had treated him like he was invisible from the start. This was something that Yi Huanyan had only just realized. She originally thought that her father would be the one who would not object to her drinking Ling Han. At this moment, Ling Han had already raised his glass for a few seconds, But Gu Heng still had no intention of looking at him. Yi Huanyan could not help but want to help ease the situation, but when Yi secretly grabbed her wrist. "My dad doesn't drink." When Gu Xinian spoke, Ji Xiaoya looked a little stunned. What happened to not saying that it had nothing to do with her? "That's why I'm drinking this glass with you. Consider it as a thank you for waiting for my sister all these years. I didn't let her down." Ling Han was slightly taken aback. He nodded and cast a grateful look at him. He tilted his head back and downed the glass of red wine in one gulp. Gu Xinian's words were a reminder to his parents that Ling Han was not unforgivable. He was already 40 years old and had spent more than 10 years around Yi Huanyan. He had suffered just as much as anyone else. When Yi was a person with a sharp tongue but a soft heart. When she heard this, her expression softened. Yi Huanyan saw this and hurriedly put some food in Gu Heng's bowl. "Dad, eat. This sweet and sour pork rib is pretty good." Gu Heng grunted in acknowledgement. When she saw that her father's expression was normal, Yi Huanyan felt slightly relieved. She turned to Ling Han and said, "Cut me some of your steak. I want to eat it." Ling Han nodded. He cut a large piece and placed it on Yi Huanyan's plate. "I want to eat too." Ji Xiaoya winked at Ling Han. "Give me some too." Gu Xinian was still expressionless. When Yi was surprised to see several juniors casually divide up the steak in front of Ling Han. "Since the steak has been divided up by us, you can reluctantly eat Chinese food with us." Gu Xinian glanced at the servant and said lightly, "Add a bowl of rice." Ji Xiaoya and Yi Huanyan looked at each other and smiled. Then they started to pick up food for Ling Han. In the blink of an eye, the plate in front of him was filled with pork ribs, chicken, broccoli, shredded potatoes, and other Chinese dishes that were on the table. Gu Heng frowned slightly, but she did not say anything. At first, they ate awkwardly. Then, Gu Heng put down her chopsticks and said that she would leave first after eating. When Yi also left with her. After that, everyone heaved a sigh of relief. However, there was still some awkwardness in the atmosphere. Fortunately, Ji Xiaoya was there and told a few jokes. Gu Xinian naturally laughed along with her. Yi Huanyan also laughed, and the atmosphere became much more harmonious. After the meal, Ji Xiaoya dragged Yi Huanyan to the back of the mountain to soak in the hot spring. Gu Xinian and Ling Han could not dissuade them. In the end, they had no choice but to follow them. Originally, they thought that it was a public hot spring. In the end, the men and women were separated. After changing into swimming trunks and coming out of the changing room, Ling Han realized that they were going in the opposite direction from Yi Huanyan and the others. Gu Xinian was already soaking in the hot spring. When he saw that Ling Han was standing still by the water, the corners of his mouth curled up into a smile. "Why? Did you think that the four of you would be soaking together? Are you disappointed?" Ling Han rubbed his nose. "It's fine as long as you don't mind." Two grown men soaking in the hot spring together. No matter how he thought about it, it was strange. Gu Xinian's indifference surprised him. As soon as he entered the water, he heard Gu Xinian say, "Stay there and don't move. It's so scary." "I thought you didn't mind." Ling Han laughed out loud. "I'm not interested in men." In the hazy mist, Gu Xinian's voice sounded. "Me neither." What he did not tell Ling Han was that there was actually no rule about soaking separately or together. However, he did not want Ling Han to see how Ji Xiaoya looked in a swimsuit, so he selfishly brought him here. No man, not even his future brother-in-law, was allowed to take a look at his wife's swimsuit. At that thought, Gu Xinian's lips curled up into a smile. However, Ling Han caught the hint of his smile. He frowned. "Are you laughing at me for coming back empty-handed?" Gu Xinian's smile faded. He raised his brows and said indifferently, "You're overthinking it." Ling Han's frown deepened. After a while, he said, "What is your father like?" When he heard this, a hint of astonishment appeared in Gu Xinian's eyes. Ling Han had always been arrogant and conceited. This was something Gu Xinian had experienced a long time ago. For the past 5 years, the Gu Corporation had been suppressing Pleasure Group. Even though Ling Han clearly knew that Gu Xinian was behind this, he could still straighten his neck and not plead with him for mercy for 5 years. He did not even try to think of a way to say something nice to him. From this, it could be seen how tough this person was. This did not sound like something Ling Han would say. Why are you asking this? Are you going to cater to his preferences? No matter what I do, I'm afraid your father will find it difficult to accept me for the time being. However, I feel that if I have a plan in mind and take it slow, it should be better. Haven't you considered that my father might not give you the chance to take it slow? Even through the mist, he could clearly feel Ling Han's depression. Gu Xinian pondered for a few seconds. Perhaps I should comfort you at a time like this, but I don't think there's a need to lie to you. However, there was no harm in adding fuel to the fire and making things worse for her. He wanted to stand up for his younger sister. Gu Xinian's eyes glinted with a sly light. On the other side of the hot spring, surrounded by a bamboo forest, there was blue sparkling wine in an ice bucket. Ji Xiaoya wore a light yellow bikini and swam back and forth in the hot spring like a goldfish. She exclaimed, "This feels so good." Only then did she obediently lie down beside Yi Huanyan. Each of them held a glass of wine and chatted casually. Judging from Mom and Dad's attitude, I'm afraid we won't be able to conquer it in the short term. Ling Han is so pitiful. After lamenting, Ji Xiaoya seemed to have thought of something and smacked her lips. But he deserves it. You think it's difficult to conquer it too? Yi Huanyan swirled her wine glass with a worried expression. Isn't that so? Can't you see how Mom and Dad usually treat me compared to how they treat Ling Han? The difference is like heaven and earth. TSK, TSK. You're showing off in front of me, aren't you? Yi Huanyan couldn't help but roll her eyes at her. If it weren't for me, would you have gotten to know my brother? I've wasted a best friend like you ingrate. Don't be like that. Aren't I helping you? Ji Xiaoya giggled. She couldn't help but kick her feet, splashing water everywhere. I have an idea. Really? Yi Huanyan stared at her doubtfully. Ji Xiaoya leaned over to her ear. Listen to me. Although this idea won't work 100%, it's very effective at 90%. Chapter 413. Are you kidding me? As soon as Ji Xiaoya finished speaking, Yi Huanyan exclaimed in surprise. She sat up abruptly as if she had encountered a venomous snake, splashing water everywhere. Why are you reacting so strongly? Ji Xiaoya lay lazily by the side of the pool and wiped the water off her face. Tell me, other than this, what other ideas do you have? That's not going to happen just because you say so. Ji Xiaoya supported half of her face with one hand and looked at her. She stuffed orange slices into her mouth with the other hand and said vaguely, You've been seeing each other for half a year. Have you taken precautions every time? So maybe you're already pregnant? Don't you think I can feel it? Yi Huanyan frowned. I still think your idea is too risky. It won't work. You're so stupid. No wonder you hid from Ling Han for 5 years. Didn't you also hide from my brother for 5 years? Yi Huanyan pursed her lips. Hey, it's your brother who hid from me for 5 years. I've been looking for him, okay? We're the same. Ji Xiaoya lay comfortably by the side and analyzed, Look, my godson didn't have a father when he was young. Although he's quite good-looking now, there's indeed a problem with his personality. Don't you think so? That's because I hurt his brain when I was pregnant. It has nothing to do with Ling Han. Are you listening or not? Go ahead. Anyway, this child grew up without a father, so he's more mature than other children in many aspects. Whether or not it has something to do with the injury when you were pregnant, I think Mom and Dad will take this into consideration. They didn't have the means back then, but now that you're in a good relationship with Ling Han, if you get pregnant again, there's no reason to let Bao be a child of a single-parent family, right? Maybe my parents really think so? How shameless! Ji Xiaoya rolled her eyes and turned away. She didn't want to talk to her anymore. I came up with the idea. It's your business whether you want to do it or not. The water vapor in the pool was dense, and the two of them seemed to have agreed not to speak again. Yi Huanyan lay on the edge of the pool and looked up at the sky. She took a deep breath and slowly exhaled. Some people were naturally incapable of lying, such as her. Women were busy and rarely had the time to soak in the hot spring. Ji Xiaoya dragged Yi Huanyan to accompany her to do 2 sets of facial masks, and then went for a full-body spa. When they came out of the hot spring, it was already dark. After returning to Nanyuan, Yi Huanyan stretched, took off her shoes, and stepped barefoot on the living room floor. It was the end of November, and the floor heating was turned on in every house. It was warm to the touch. Sophia placed the shoes she had taken off at the entrance and asked her if she wanted to eat something. "No, it's okay. Is Ling Han not back yet?" Yi Huanyan sat on the sofa, drinking water, and asked casually, "Ling Han, who is he?" Sophia sounded very confused. Yi Huanyan was stunned for a moment and suddenly realized something. She had subconsciously thought that Gu Xinian would send Ling Han here, but now it seemed that not only did the servants not know about this person, but it was already so late. Ling Han probably hadn't been brought here yet. "My brother hasn't been here either?" At the mention of Gu Xinian, Sophia came back to her senses. "Young master came here once, but when he saw that you weren't here, he went back to West Court." Yi Huanyan nodded blankly. "I got it." She took out her phone and called Gu Xinian. "Where's Ling Han? You didn't send him away, did you?" The other end laughed. "I was just about to tell you. What's the rush? He's been arranged to be in North Court. For the sake of Mom and Dad, you'd better not be too obvious." Yi Huanyan heaved a sigh of relief. "If you're really worried, you can go and see for yourself. There are no servants in North Court. He's the only one there. I told him to tell me what he needs, but I don't think he'll say anything." Yi Huanyan wasn't too worried about the absence of servants. Ling Han wasn't a spoiled person. After hanging up the phone, she walked around the living room. "Sophia, you should rest." "I'm going to rest too. There's nothing else." Sophia was stunned. "Okay." Although she said that, she didn't move. Yi Huanyan had to go upstairs and wait until midnight before she tiptoed out of bed. She put on a coat and sneaked downstairs. Then she ran wildly in the night. What was going on? She saw her boyfriend in her own home like a thief. Yi Huanyan was speechless as she ran. The lights in North Court were still on. Yi Huanyan hid in the hallway and listened to Gulu's voice coming from the living room. After a long time, the door opened and Gulu's voice came. "Mr. Ling, I'll be leaving first." Gulu walked past the door and stood in the hallway for a few seconds. Yi Huanyan's heart was in her throat. If he found out that she was here in the middle of the night, it would be so embarrassing. Fortunately, Gulu didn't look back. He only stood there for a few seconds before he strode out of the yard. Yi Huanyan rushed into the house before Ling Han closed the door and threw herself into his arms. A sudden gust of cold wind hit Ling Han's chest, and he staggered back 2 steps. His back hit the shoe cabinet at the entrance. He furrowed his brows and tried not to make a sound, but the pain was real. His hands were suspended in the air, and he couldn't react for a moment. By the time he reacted, the person in his arms had already let out a long sigh of relief. "You scared me to death." A layer of warmth condensed in his eyes. He wrapped his arms around her shoulders and said gently, "Why are you here now? Are you cold?" "It's so cold." Yi Huanyan shrank into his arms again and said unhappily, "Why did Gulu look for you in the middle of the night?" "I was blown by the cold wind under the hallway for more than 10 minutes." "Why didn't you come in?" Ling Han opened his jacket and wrapped her in it. He patted her back and said, "You're the second daughter. Are you afraid of embarrassing yourself?" "How can the second daughter be so shameless? What's wrong with you? Weren't you the second daughter who was shameless when you pulled me into a room at the bar?" "Hey, I'm leaving if you keep talking." Yi Huanyan said this, but her body was very honest, and she snuggled into his arms again. "You came to look for me, so late. Do you want to chat or comfort me?" "Both." She snuggled into his chest like a kitten and rubbed against him. Ling Han's Adam's apple bobbed. If you're not leaving, I'm going to close the door. His slightly hoarse voice came from the top of his head. As soon as he finished speaking, the person in his arms moved. Yi Huanyan directly raised her leg and kicked the door from behind. After a loud bang, it was as if the whole room shook. Her arms wrapped around Ling Han's neck without any explanation. He lowered his head, and his eyes met a blushing face looking up at him. She was staring straight at him charmingly. Ling Han, I want to have another child. Since you didn't know how to lie, then let's do something real. Chapter 414. Ling Han was a little confused by Yi Huanyan's sudden passion. After hearing that she wanted a child, an indescribably complicated expression appeared on his face. Yi Huanyan took the initiative to wrap her arms around his neck, kiss his lips, and tease his senses. Even though it was difficult for him to resist such an attack, he still held back. He held her shoulders and pulled her out of his arms. Panting, he said seriously, "What did you just say? What child do you want?" Yi Huanyan looked at him, blushing. "I want a child. We already have Naneo, don't we? Isn't it good for Naneo to have a younger sister or brother?" As she spoke, her hands were still restlessly moving in front of his chest. Her nimble fingers moved twice and unbuttoned 3 buttons of his shirt. Ling Han's breathing became heavier, but he held her hands. "Don't move. Tell me clearly first." "That's what I was thinking." She winked slyly, raised her leg, and hooked it around his waist. She hung her entire body on his body, hooked her arms around his neck, and sealed his lips. Ling Han was very confident in himself. He could face any woman with a calm expression, but Yi Huanyan was an exception. Even if she was standing in front of him with clothes on, he couldn't help but feel restless, let alone such a living person taking the initiative to act out a live sex scene in front of him. At that moment, his mind went blank. He supported her body and put her on the shoe cabinet by the entrance. Then he held her cheeks and passionately responded to her kiss. All the uneasiness of the past few days was vented in lust. After the world spun, the two of them tumbled onto the sofa, and their clothes fell to the ground. Yi Huanyan narrowed her eyes, and her hair fell like a waterfall. Her face was like a peach blossom, and she bit her lip and whispered softly. Before entering, Ling Han's movements clearly paused for a few seconds. Yi Huanyan didn't think much of it and couldn't care less. She raised her head, and the crystal chandelier above her shone on her face, forcing her to close her eyes. Her hands gripped the sofa under her, and it made a cracking sound as he moved. After sweating for a while, Ling Han picked up the blanket and covered her body, then pulled out a tissue to clean himself. Yi Huanyan recovered from the dizziness and lay on the sofa, gasping for breath. From the corner of her eye, she caught a glimpse of the rubber wrapped in a tissue in the trash can. She frowned and asked, "Why did you wear it?" Ling Han turned his head and looked at her in confusion. His voice was hoarse, and there was residual lust in it. "What's wrong?" Yi Huanyan frowned and said in a muffled voice, "I already said that I want a child." Ling Han's gaze lowered a few inches. He bent down and changed the topic. "I'll carry you to the shower." Yi Huanyan's eyes lit up. She hugged his neck and breathed in his ear. "Why don't we do it again?" Ling Han was stunned. He didn't know whether to laugh or cry as he pried her hands away from his neck. "I'm fine with it. If you can't get out of bed tomorrow morning, your parents won't be kind to me." Yi Huanyan blinked. One of her legs stretched out from under the blanket and poked his waist. She looked seductive. "Do you care what my parents think or what I think of you?" Ling Han's Adam's apple visibly bobbed twice. A part of him that had just stopped moving was now ready to move again. As Yi Huanyan became more and more bold, his face flushed red. He growled and quickly pressed her down on the sofa again. He leaned on her shoulder and panted heavily. "Yen Yen, good Yen Yen. Stop fooling around." Yi Huanyan was focused on Ji Xiaoya's plan. She didn't care about Ling Han's situation at all. She became more and more reckless. Ling Han's entire body was on fire from her teasing. Before he lost control, he forced himself to hold on to a pink plastic bag that was half the size of a palm from a table. He tore it open with his teeth and reached for his lower body. Yi Huanyan saw the thing in his hand. Her expression changed. She held his hand and looked stubborn. "I don't want this." Ling Han frowned. "No." The two of them confronted each other, and the atmosphere became colder and colder. Yi Huanyan pushed him off the sofa. Her face darkened as she silently picked up her clothes and began to put them on. With a bang, the door was slammed shut. Ling Han sat up from the ground. The cold wind blew, and he shivered. He lowered his head and looked at a part of him that was still hard. He couldn't help but laugh bitterly. What kind of person would run away after flirting? On the way back, the more Yi Huanyan thought about it, the angrier she became. When a woman was angry, she had no sense of logic. In the end, she started to think that Ling Han didn't love her at all. He just liked this body. Unfortunately, this body was modified later. She even had the idea that he was sleeping with someone else. All kinds of dissatisfaction mixed in, coupled with the cold wind. She had a headache all night. As expected, she didn't get up the next day. Originally, they were supposed to eat 3 meals in the East Court when they got home. However, Yi Huanyan was absent from breakfast. "Where's Mommy?" When Yi held Naaneo's little hand and asked. Naaneo strutted in like an old man with his hands behind his back. In comparison, his father, Ling Han, was much more reserved. He walked and stood, afraid that his future mother-in-law would find fault with him. Mommy hasn't woken up yet. The Gu family's breakfast was at 8:30 in the morning. The whole family wasn't sleepy people, and Yi Huanyan was no exception. When Yi immediately felt that something was wrong, she glanced at Ling Han unhappily. What's wrong with her? Ling Han's expression froze. He didn't know if he should answer. If he said that he knew, it would directly expose that they had met last night. If he said that he didn't know, it would appear that he didn't care about Yi Huanyan at all. He was in a dilemma. How would he know? He slept in the North Court last night. Ji Xiaoya's voice interrupted loudly. "Mom, don't worry. I soaked in the hot spring with Yen a little too long yesterday. I have a headache when I get back. Maybe I caught a cold on my way back. I'll bring some light breakfast to Yan's later." When Yi nodded, "Okay." After speaking, when Yi didn't look at Ling Han anymore, she held Naaneo's hand and led him to the dining table. Naaneo didn't even take his hands out of his pockets. He just opened his mouth and waited to be fed. This attitude of a young master was much more impressive than anyone in the Gu family. Ling Han sighed in relief. He glanced at Ji Xiaoya and nodded as a form of thanks. After breakfast, Ji Xiaoya took the packed breakfast with Naaneo and went to the South Court to look for Yi Huanyan. Gu Sinian originally wanted to follow them, but when Yi stopped him, "An Yan, don't go. I need your help." Ji Xiaoya looked back and didn't ask anything. She patted Gu Sinian's shoulder and said with a smile, "Do your best to help Mom. Don't come with me to join in the fun. We sisters are whispering to each other." Ji Xiaoya's figure disappeared from the hall. Yi looked at her son with a worried expression. "It's about time." "Who's here?" Gu Sinian frowned. "Xiaoing." After speaking, Yi sighed. "It's been so many years. The two of you are really... When she called me last night, she was looking for you for a serious matter. She wasn't looking for trouble. Xiao Ying is a good child. Don't worry." Chapter 4:15. She's not the type to look for trouble, Gu Sinian explained. Wen Yi's expression was a little complicated. She looked like she wanted to say something but stopped on second thought. After a while, she said faintly, "Forget it. Do as you see fit." Ling Han's attention wasn't on Gu Sinian's love history. He finished his breakfast early in the morning and sat upright. He watched as his future father-in-law slowly finished his porridge and even drank 2 bowls. Then he walked away with his hands behind his back and still didn't look at him. During breakfast today, Mom didn't make things difficult for Ling Han anymore. Everyone was normal. It's just that Dad still treats him like he's invisible. Ji Xiaoya muttered as she placed a bowl of porridge and a plate of side dishes on the bedside table. Then, she pulled Yi Huanyan up from the bed. Xiao Yu, I don't want to eat. That won't do. If you don't eat, Mom will drag Ling Han to the shooting range in the afternoon. I don't dare to ask Dad for help. My head hurts. Why are you pretending to be sick? It's not advisable to go on a hunger strike or pretend to be sick. It can easily lead to family conflicts. Ji Xiaoya touched Yi Huanyan's wrist and pretended to pull her up. When she touched Yi Huanyan's wrist, she suddenly frowned and reached out to touch her forehead. She immediately exclaimed, "Oh, you're right. It's hot. Do you have a fever?" With that said, she turned around and looked at the little girl on the sofa. "Naneo, go call Safina." "Okay." Naneo ran outside and shouted downstairs, "Safina, Mommy has a fever. Bring the first aid kit up." Ji Xiaoya stayed by the bed and glared at her. "You can even get a fever from soaking in a hot spring. I feel really bad about it. Look at your small physique. Are there any side effects?" Yi Huanyan narrowed her eyes and bit the thermometer in her mouth, unable to speak. She could only listen to Ji Xiaoya's nagging. Ever since this person married her brother, she had become more and more naggy. She was very talkative every day. Especially when she returned to the villa, she liked to run around with a bag of snacks. Not only did she lead the prim and proper Gu Min astray, but she had also led Gu Lu astray recently. "Open your mouth. Let me check the temperature. It's almost 39 degrees Celsius. Lie down and think of a way to reduce your fever. If it still doesn't go down at night, I won't help you hide it anymore. I'll call the doctor directly." "It's nothing serious. I just caught a cold last night. Don't tell my mom." As soon as Yi Huanyan spoke, he felt his throat burn. Last night, after walking around the villa in a sweaty manner, anyone would have a fever. "Who knows?" Ji Xiaoya sighed. "Who knows how our mom will torture this future son-in-law this afternoon?" Yi Huanyan's eyes dimmed a little. "Do you think that Ling Han remarried to me because he feels that he owes me? Of course he owes you. Do you still need to ask?" Ji Xiaoya blurted out without thinking. However, Yi Huanyan did not mean that. Her face was extremely pale. Last night, she was in a muddled state repeatedly in her dreams. There was the time when the two of them fell out, the time when they were innocent and ambiguous, and the time when they met again. Before she woke up, she saw a pair of eyes full of guilt. Those eyes in her dreams made her feel uneasy. "What are you thinking about?" Ji Xiaoya asked. "Why are you suddenly asking me this? Did he provoke you? Or is it because you can't stand the pressure from Mom and Dad?" "Nothing." Yi Huanyan closed his eyes. "I want to sleep for a while." "All right then, you go and rest. I will come and see you before lunch." Ji Xiaoya adjusted the cold towel on her forehead. Before she left, she reminded Naneo, who was slumped on the sofa and playing with his tablet. "Your mommy is running a fever. Don't bother her. Come with Auntie." Due to the underground hot spring, the bamboo forest at the back of the villa was shrouded in mist all year round. It was like a fairyland. Today, Fu Yingxiang was wearing a lotus-colored cotton dress with a large black lantern-sleeve cardigan on the outside. There was a fresh and elegant little daisy brooch on her chest. Her long chestnut brown hair had been dyed black at some point in time and was draped over her shoulders. From time to time, it would be blown by the wind, making her look like a fairy who had fallen into the mortal world. She had the appearance of a classic beauty. 5 years ago, before the Fu family's accident, she had always dressed in this style. She looked like an otherworldly fairy, as if she had no intention of getting involved with anything in the world. Gu Sinian approached her slowly, as if he was afraid of disturbing her. He stepped carefully on the dead leaves in the bamboo forest, but the leaves rustled. She turned around and showed a natural smile. "You are here. Why don't you sit in the room?" Gu Sinian asked. "I am afraid of misunderstanding. It is not a big deal, but there is something that I am worried about unless I give it to you in person. I happen to be in Los Angeles, so I brought it with me." she said as she handed over the blue suede box that she had been holding in her hand. "The last 2 bottles of that child's ashes are here. Although I know that you don't mind this, it will be better for you in the future, right?" Gu Sinian took the box and looked at it apologetically. When he opened it, there was a glass bottle that was as thick as 2 fingers, and it was filled with gray powder. "Why is it with you?" "During the wedding, I took advantage of the chaos to get it from Gu Duo. Since you didn't go, she knew that this thing was meaningless in her hands, so she didn't waste any time and asked for it back." Fu Yingxiang said it casually. In fact, when she was preparing, she wasn't sure if Gu Duo would really bring this thing to the wedding. After all, if she missed that opportunity, it wouldn't be easy to set up another trap for Gu Duo. Fortunately, it was a close call in the end. "Thank you." Gu Sinian closed the box with a complicated look in his eyes. Fu Yingxiang was very relaxed and smiled. She didn't think it was taboo to bring it to the wedding. "I heard that after she went home, she had a big conflict with her family. Now there is chaos over there. She wants to go back to the Four Seasons Villa. Your parents didn't agree, did they?" Gu Sinian shook his head. "No, I was afraid that Yan Yan would be uncomfortable." Fu Yingxiang smiled again, but there was a bit of self-mockery in her smile. That girl really doesn't know how to behave. She can't know her place, and she still blindly thinks about it. She made a mess of her own life. In the end, no matter what happened, it was all because of her own actions. She was talking about Gu Duo, but how could she not be talking about herself? "If you need anything in the future, just let me know." "Don't think about the future. Let's do it now in this place. Gu Sinian, you still owe me a first kiss. Don't you remember?" Gu Sinian was stunned. Everyone had a time when they were young, and Gu Sinian was no exception. From the age of 10 until many years later, Fu Yingxiang was the only girl of the same age by his side. Every year, there would be a few holidays where his father's good friends would send them to the villa to stay. At that time, the only girl in the villa, Gu Min, was still a snot-nosed person who followed her brother around. She couldn't even be considered a girl. Therefore, when he climbed mountains, climbed trees, and dived into the sea to catch fish in his youth, it was this woman in front of him who accompanied him. Chapter 416. At the age of 15, he was at the age of first awakening of love, so he couldn't remember clearly what he had promised. But when the scene appeared again, he would be heartless if he said that he couldn't remember. Don't tell me you don't remember." Fu Yingxiang raised her hand to tidy up her long hair that was messed up by the wind. At this moment, Gu Sinian seemed to understand why she suddenly dyed her hair back to black. On his 16th birthday, she had also come here to attend his birthday banquet in plain clothes. She was as elegant as a lotus flower in the midst of a crowd of young girls. Gu Heng had many friends and brought many children with him. For a time, the entire Four Seasons Villa was very lively. However, the person he was most familiar with was nowhere to be seen. He found the group of girls noisy and gave him a headache, so he went to the back of the mountain to find this scene. The 15-year-old Fu Yingxiang was leaning against an ancient tree in the bamboo forest and playing her flute. She looked like someone who had walked out of a painting. "Hey, why are you here?" At that time, Gu Sinian still had a head of black hair. He had a domineering temperament and loved to tease people. He directly snatched the flute from Fu Yingxiang's hands. "They are too noisy. My head hurts. Also, give me back my flute. Can't you let me take a look?" Gu Sinian was used to messing with his friends since childhood, so he didn't notice that something was wrong with her. "I said, give it back to me." The girl's tone became more severe. "I won't." Just as the word no left his mouth, he felt a fierce push on his chest. The youth didn't pay attention and staggered, falling on his butt and sitting on the ground. "Hey, are you serious? Give me back my flute." "I won't." "Give it back." In the end, no one could remember how they wrestled. They didn't fight at all and rolled around the mountain. In the end, Gu Sinian pressed on top of her and shouted, "If you scratch my face again, I'll—" The girl tightly clenched her teeth. "You'll what?" "I'll kiss you." Pop! Everything was silent, except for the sound of leaves rustling. Later on, The young girl cried uncontrollably. Her tears and snot flowed down uncontrollably, staining his sleeve. Aya, I only kissed your forehead. The first kiss is on the lips. I didn't kiss you. I didn't kiss you. Don't cry, Xiaoying, I was wrong. Amidst her sobs, the girl's voice rang out. My mom left. When she left, she told me that all men are bad. At that time, Gu Xinian still didn't know that Fu Yingxiang's mother had died with hatred in her heart. Her last words were filled with tears and blood, soaked with all the expectations that a 15-year-old girl had for this world. Your mother is right. The young man held her shoulder. But I'm not. I'm definitely not. None of us in the Gu family are. Look at my dad. He's only in love with my mom. She can't even beat him away. All these years, my mother has been arguing with my father over my sister. My father is still very good to her. Don't you know that? Like father, like son. So I'm the same as my dad. We belong to the kind of good men who are loyal to one woman until death. It's rare. The young girl finally smiled through her tears. What do you mean by loyal to one woman until death? Does that make sense? You're smiling. The young man rubbed her head. You look better when you smile. You were crying like a ghost just now. I couldn't bring myself to kiss your forehead. You should owe me your first kiss first. Gu Xinian, bad guy, stop right there. No one is allowed to move before I kiss you. I remember. Gu Xinian's voice was tinged with a layer of bitterness. The young man was just joking. How did you remember? But he couldn't bring himself to say such words. If you knew that someone had waited for you for decades, how could you say such words? Fu Yingxiang kept smiling, as if she was possessed. Her tone was very relaxed. I'm in a good mood today. I didn't cry, and I'm not depressed. So I should get back what you owe me, right? Are you really sure? He didn't know what to say. He didn't know how to say it. I'm really sure. I'm sure. The leaves rustled for a long time. Gu Xinian finally took a step forward and released the voice that he had been holding for a long time. Okay. Everyone had obsessions. Wen Yi's obsessions were to find her missing daughter. Gu Xinian's obsessions were to let Su Ku and their child rest in peace. Fu Yingxiang's obsessions were just a young joke. Since she could fulfill her wish, why not? His silver hair was particularly eye-catching in the bamboo forest. The cross earring on his left ear had been removed. Standing in front of Fu Yingxiang, who wasn't wearing high heels, he was like a huge monster. He reached out and hugged her shoulder, as if he was comforting an injured kitten. She looked up and was still smiling. Her smile was pure and harmless, as gentle as water. Gu Xinian frowned. In the end, he lowered his face the moment he leaned over. The person in front of him lowered her head slightly. The kiss that was supposed to land on her lips landed on her forehead instead. It was a little cool. Gu Xinian was stunned, but he was already pushed away. Why do you look like I'm going to rape you? Even though I'm 40 years old, I don't think I'm that hard for you to kiss, right? Fu Yingxiang pursed her lips and turned around with her hands behind her back. Her footsteps were light and the tassels on the hem of her sweater swayed. That's it. I'm leaving. We don't owe each other anything. The bamboo forest rustled. Gu Xinian looked at the little black that was walking away. His eyes were filled with complex emotions. Fu Yingxiang walked away and got into the car on the main road of the Four Seasons Villa. Go straight to the pier. Okay, Miss Fu. Her beautiful face was reflected in the rearview mirror. Many women dreamed of having such a beautiful face even at 40 years old. At this moment, there was a relaxed smile on her face. She raised her fair and clean fingers to touch her forehead, hiding the bitterness in her eyes. She had gotten what she wanted. Uncle, you're done for. A childish voice scared Gu Xinian so much that he staggered. He turned around and saw an adult and a child standing behind an old tree not far away. When he saw the light yellow hoodie, he knew that someone had come. Xiao Yu, Na Neo, was wearing a red vest. Standing next to Ji Xiaoya, who was wearing a yellow outfit, they looked like traffic lights. She was hugging her arms. Her pink and tender little face looked like an auntie who was watching the show. She pretended to be deep in thought as she shook her head and sighed repeatedly. "Uncle, uncle, you're done for. Shall you this matter?" Before he could finish, the yellow light jumped into his arms. She looked up and kissed him on the cheek. She whispered, "Shall you?" Gusinian was a little flustered. He heard her choked voice. The 3 words were hidden in the bamboo leaves, but it was not difficult to distinguish them. "Thank you. Thank you for not being moved by such a good girl and waiting for me to come. Thank you for the love in your eyes. It has nothing to do with time and waiting. It's only about each other. Thank you." The red light hugged her arms and staggered. Her small body barely managed to steady herself. She covered her suddenly red face and peeked through the gaps between her fingers at the 2 people kissing in the distance. She was dumbstruck. "Mommy, what's going on? Why aren't they following the plot in the book?" Chapter 417. I'll sleep with you tonight. Ji Xiaoya suddenly said this as she set the table for dinner. Yi Huanyan was slightly stunned. "I have a cold. Aren't you afraid that I'll infect you?" It's better than what?" Yi Huanyan bit her spoon and looked at Ji Xiaoya quizzically. "What's wrong with you? Did you quarrel with my brother?" "We didn't quarrel. I just don't want to go back and see him." "So you quarreled with him?" Yi Huanyan swallowed a mouthful of porridge and pursed her lips. "Why don't you tell me about it? I happen to be frustrated in love too. Maybe you can comfort me and make me feel better." Ji Xiaoya frowned. "We really didn't quarrel. I was just angry with myself and felt very uncomfortable." "Huh? There has to be a reason." With that said, Ji Xiaoya climbed onto the bed and sat opposite Yi Huanyan at the table. She tucked her legs under the blanket and looked at Yi Huanyan with a deep frown. "The reason is because I want to die. I suddenly feel that your brother might have made a mistake by choosing me." "What do you mean? Did you know that when I came to bring you lunch this afternoon, Mom deliberately sent me away so that your brother could meet someone?" Yi Huanyan was eating her porridge when she heard this. She paused and put down her spoon. "My 4th sister? There was probably no other person in the world who could make when Yi sent Ji Xiaoya away so that her son could meet someone else. See? You guessed it right away. Your family's attitude is really, what do you mean by our family? I don't like to hear that." Yi Huanyan glared at her. "Don't talk nonsense. Did you see my brother and my 4th sister doing something? Were you triggered?" "I didn't do anything." Ji Xiaoya frowned and thought for a long time. Finally, she sighed and said, "Forget it. I don't want to talk to you. It's hard to explain. Anyway, can you take me in tonight?" Yi Huanyan stared at her for a while, but couldn't figure out what was going on even after a long time. She could only nod and agree. "Let's not talk about me. What about you? Didn't Ling Han come to see you this afternoon?" "Don't mention it." Yi Huanyan rolled her eyes. "You already know the answer." Wen Yi's dissatisfaction with Ling Han was all reflected in the fact that she asked him to help her with the chores. There were obviously servants and all kinds of surplus labor at home, but she just had to take Ling Han with her. "I heard from Safina that my mother brought Ling Han to the mountains behind Damine in the afternoon. She said that she wanted to teach him how to identify gems and wanted to impart her lifelong knowledge to him." "Mine." Ji Xiaoya twitched the corner of her mouth and said, "Don't you feel bad? He reaped what he sowed." "What?" Ji Xiaoya widened her eyes in surprise and said, "What's going on?" "I saw you sick at noon. I thought you just caught a cold. Your attitude is not right." Yi Huanyan's expression changed. She lowered her head and ate the porridge without saying a word. After a while, she said in a muffled voice, "He doesn't agree." "What does he disagree about?" "About having another child." "Why?" Ji Xiaoya frowned and said, "He doesn't like children. Look at how obedient he is to Nanao. Does it look like he doesn't like children?" Yi Huanyan took a deep breath and suddenly slammed her chopsticks. Her face turned red, and she said angrily, "I think he doesn't want me to give birth to his child at all. Men are all bad. I agree with you on this point." Women were usually illogical when they were angry. It was very normal for them to dig up old scores or imagine some men's wrongdoings out of thin air. At this time, they urgently needed to vent. After venting, the matter could be considered half-solved. The two sisters hid under the blanket, and after berating the man fiercely, they fell asleep contentedly. One decided to pester him, while the other decided to forget the past. Yi Huanyan's cold did not recover, and it dragged on for 3 days. She did not know if Ling Han was deliberately avoiding her, or if Gu Yuxing's parents deliberately stopped him. But she really did not see Ling Han in these 3 days. Even if they were in the same villa, they did not see each other. However, the morning and night text messages did not stop every day. Yi Huanyan did not reply to any of them, but Ling Han insisted on sending her messages. 3 days later, Yi Huanyan's cold was mostly recovered. She woke up early and put on some light makeup before going to the East Court to eat. When Ling Han arrived, Yi Huanyan was leaning against Wen Yi's side and talking. The two of them were talking and laughing. Yi Huanyan leaned into her arms and laughed. Her body could not stop shaking, but when she saw Ling Han enter, her expression suddenly changed, and she sat up very seriously. Ling Han greeted everyone in turn. When his gaze landed on Yi Huanyan, it was covered with a layer of warmth. Yi Huanyan did not appreciate it. She raised her chin and snorted, looking indifferent. When Gu Heng saw this scene, his wise eyes settled with a layer of deep meaning. He looked at Gu Sinian and said, "Nian, go to the pier at 10:30 p.m. to pick up Uncle He." "Uncle He is coming?" Gu Sinian was slightly stunned. "Yes, he said that Xiao Chuan wants to design an opera house. He has been studying all kinds of architecture for the past year. Recently, he has taken a fancy to the old church in our villa and wants to come and take a look. Your uncle he has nothing to do, so he came with him to visit. The timing is quite good." Gu Sinian looked at Ling Han meaningfully. A year ago, at Yan Yan's birthday party, Uncle He recommended his son and wanted to be our son-in-law. Wen Yi quickly waved her hand. "That won't do. Xiao Chuan is too young. He is 5 years younger than Yan Yan." Ji Xiaoye giggled. "Recently, it is popular for older women to date younger men." "Mom, age has never been the limit of love." "That's true. If Yan Yan likes him, we have no objections." Wen Yi winked at her daughter with a sly look. "Mom, I have only seen Xiao Chuan twice. Apart from being younger, I really don't have any other thoughts about him." Yi Huanyan shrugged helplessly. "Don't play matchmaker. I already have a son. Why would I ruin a good young man?" While everyone was joking around, Gu Heng slowly sipped his tea. His gaze, intentionally or otherwise, landed on Ling Han, who was sitting opposite him. He did not seem to be affected by this half-truth joke. He lowered his head and cut the bacon for Nano. He put it to his mouth and said in a low and patient tone, "Open your mouth." Nao, stay away from the screen when you are playing games. Did you wear the anti-radiation glasses I gave you yesterday? They are too heavy. My nose hurts. I don't want to wear them." Compared to Ling Han's patient look, Nao was much more perfunctory and even a little impatient. Ling Han frowned and lowered his voice to persuade him. "Nao, those glasses are not much heavier than a piece of paper." Nao sniffed and jumped off the chair with his game console. "I am full." After saying that, he walked away with the servant. He did not take Ling Han, his real father, seriously at all. No one was surprised by this scene. Usually, only Yi Huanyan would reprimand him. However, at this moment, she did not say anything and only frowned. Yi Huanyan looked up at him, her gaze gradually becoming more aggressive. The leaves rustled behind them. Ling Han's voice was a little hoarse, and there was a hint of pain. "Your brother said that when you gave birth to Naneo, you had a difficult labor and suffered a lot of bleeding." Yi Huanyan's eyes froze. She really hadn't considered this reason. 5 years ago, when she gave birth to Naneo, there were many burns on her body, and she was still recovering. When she gave birth to Naneo, all the wounds on her body split open, and pus mixed with blood flowed out, staining the entire operating table red. That was probably the closest she had come to death 4 months after the car accident. She didn't know when Gu Xinian told this to Ling Han. She stared at him blankly, and her voice was tinged with bitterness. My body has completely recovered. As long as you're by my side, I don't want you to be in any danger. Yen Yen. Ling Han's hand gently touched her cheek. The pain, guilt, and love in his eyes were intertwined, and they couldn't be separated. He looked at the woman in front of him. This was the woman he fell in love with at first sight when he returned to China when he was young. This was the woman he had been entangled with love and hate for more than 10 years. Yen Yen, you don't seem to know how much I cherish you. Yi Huanyan looked at his helpless and pained expression. In the end, she couldn't continue to insist. She sighed, hugged his waist, and leaned against his chest. You don't have to be so careful. I'm not made of glass. Everything will be fine. Everything will be fine in the future. Okay. He stroked the top of her head, his eyes filled with gentleness. Everything will be fine. At noon, Gu Xinian personally went to the pier to pick up Gu Heng's good friends, Uncle He and his son, to the villa. Out of courtesy, the Gu family stood in front of the main entrance of the East Court to welcome them. Yi Huanyan stood beside Wen Yi. She looked around but didn't see Ling Han, so she asked Wen Yi, "Where's Ling Han?" Wen Yi didn't even look up. She only cared about waving at the car in the distance and said perfunctorily, "I asked him to go out to sea to fish with John. They should be back soon." Yi Huanyan frowned. "Mom, why do you insist on making him do such physical work? It's not like you don't know that he hasn't done this before. It's precisely because he hasn't done this before that I'm making him do it. Don't forget that he's 8 years older than you. I'm testing his strength so that he won't even be able to carry non-AO in the future. I have to hand it to you for your logic. Oh, don't worry. Do you think your mom will eat him up? Your uncle he is here. Go say hi." With that said, when he followed behind her husband and walked towards the black Rolls-Royce. Uncle he was a mutual friend of Yi Huanyan's parents. It was said that he had pursued Wen Yi when he was young, but Gu Heng beat him to it. It was rare that there was no enmity between the three of them, and they had been friends for decades. Uncle he was wearing gray casual clothes. He was a few years younger than Yi Huanyan's father, probably because he took good care of himself and didn't have many troubles. His hair was still black, and he didn't look old. Next to Uncle, he was a young man who was half a head taller than him. He was about 25 or 26 years old, wearing a burgundy hoodie, black trousers, and sneakers. He looked very young and energetic. He smiled at Yi Huanyan, revealing his dimples. He shouted at Yi Huanyan, who was standing on the steps from afar, "Sis, long time no see. You've become prettier." Ji Xiaoye held back her laughter and secretly tugged at Yi Huanyan's clothes. "Does this little brat like you?" Yi Huanyan glared at her, then turned around and smiled at Yi Chaochuan. Uncle Yi smiled very kindly. He looked at his old friend and his wife and said jokingly, "Xiaochuan said that he wanted to use the church in your villa for reference when designing the opera house. I told him that he had ulterior motives, but he didn't admit it. Look, he kept talking about Yen Yen the whole way here. He couldn't wait to praise your Yen Yen for her beauty. If you ask me, why don't your Yen Yen marry into my family? She's my only son, and in the future, the family property will be shared between the two of us." Wen Yi looked at Yi Huanyan and smiled meaningfully. "My daughter is a few years older than Xiaochuan. If she's younger, we'd be more than willing. It's good that she's older. She's 3 years older than him, and Xiaochuan is always changing his mind. It's good that someone can control him." While they were chatting enthusiastically, Ji Xiaoye was grinning from ear to ear. She leaned on Yi Huanyan's shoulder and whispered in his ear, 6 years older than him. Chapter 419. Before Yi Huanyan could think of a rebuttal to Ji Xiaoye, the young man ran up to them. "Sis, this is a gift I got for you. It's a music box I made myself." Yi Huanyan coughed dryly and tried desperately to signal Gusinian with her eyes. "Thank you, Xiaochuan," Gusinian smiled. He pulled his wife, who was trying to mess things up, over to him and said in a deep voice, "Dad, Mom, the restaurant is ready. Let's take Uncle He and Xiaochuan to eat first." Lunch was exceptionally sumptuous. It was rare for them to have a round table. Nan-Neo sat at the table, and there was a turntable in the middle of the round table. There were 8 cold dishes. First, there was duck soup, then there were more than 10 dishes with meat and vegetables. Yen, Uncle He opened a new resort hotel in the Maldives. You're welcome to visit anytime. Okay, I'll go when I'm free. Yi Huanyan was a little distracted. She kept glancing at the door. Mom, where's Ling Han? Why isn't he back yet? He probably forgot the time while fishing with John. Don't wait for him. Let's eat first. When Yi looked indifferent, she had a matter-of-fact look on her face. Yi Huanyan frowned. I'd better go take a look. It looked like it was going to rain. Fishing in this weather was always worrying. There was no signal at sea, so there was no reply to her text message. When Yi put down her chopsticks and looked at Yi Huanyan with a gentle but firm expression. Yen, the guests are here. Yi Huanyan was stunned and froze in the act of getting up. When Yi had never deliberately asked her to do anything. It was normal for her to leave early when she was accompanying guests. She had never been harsh. However, her attitude today was clearly a little tough. The reason was obvious. I'm not that hungry. Why don't you accompany me to the church, Sister Yen? A voice came from the opposite side of Yi Huanyan. It was He Xiaochuan. He had put down his chopsticks and looked at Yi Huanyan with a smile. Aunt Yi Huanyan, please do me a favor and ask Sister Yen to take me to the church first. Besides, my father and I are not guests. We are family. As soon as he said this, the atmosphere at the table became lively again. Everyone laughed. Uncle He laughed and scolded him. You little brat, you're always so playful. Yi Huanyan looked at Wen Yi hesitantly. Wen Yi smiled helplessly. Go ahead. If you're hungry, come back early for dinner. I'll leave the kitchen open for you. Coming out of the restaurant, they went around the small garden of the East Court. Yi Huanyan pointed to the top of a church in the south and said, The church is over there. Xiaochuan, go there yourself. If you can't find the way, ask someone. He Xiaochuan was 25 years old. He should be able to find the way. Yi Huanyan was just being polite. After all, He Xiaochuan wanted to help her. She could see that. Thank you for just now. I still have something to do, so I'll leave first. With that, she walked in the opposite direction. The location of the Four Seasons Villa was at the North Gate. Outside the North Gate was the dock, where several fishing boats and speedboats of the Gu family were parked. After taking 2 steps, she heard a voice behind her. She was stunned. When she turned around, she saw He Xiaochuan following her. She was stunned. Xiaochuan, aren't you going to the church? Sister, where are you going? The dock at the North Gate. I'll go with you. No, I'll go find someone. Your ex-husband. A trace of displeasure appeared in He Xiaochuan's eyes. The man who left you on the island without any news for 5 years? Why are you still looking for him? The word ex-husband was very uncomfortable for Yi Huanyan. She frowned, and her voice turned cold. This is between me and him. He Xiaochuan's expression changed. He took a deep breath and lowered his head to look at the ground. When he raised his head again, he changed his clothes and said with a relaxed expression, Sis, don't misunderstand. I just feel that it's not worth it for you to suffer so much at his hands. I don't have any other intentions. I just wanted to give this to you. That's why I followed you. Yi Huanyan sighed in relief. He stretched out his clenched fist in front of her and said with a smile, Guess which hand it's in. It was a child's trick. Yi Huanyan had always liked children's games, so she was used to He Xiaochuan's childish behavior that did not match his age. Left hand. You guessed right. Sister, you're amazing. He Xiaochuan released his left hand. In his palm was a dark gray mechanical bird the size of a fingernail. It was flapping its wings. It looked very delicate and small. What's this? Yi Huanyan suddenly became interested and took 2 steps closer. He Chao Chuan saw her coming closer and deliberately clenched his fist. When he released it, the little bird in his palm suddenly became bigger. It was the size of a knuckle and was still flapping its wings in his palm. I originally planned to give this to Nanao, but it was too small. I was afraid that he would swallow it, so I didn't dare to give it to him. So I'll give it to you. Sister, this was invented by a classmate of mine. He Chao Chuan explained as he lowered his head and explained to Yi Huanyan. Pinch it and it'll become a small bird. Pinch again and the bird will become 1 size bigger. Pinch it again and it will become 1 size bigger. There are only 3 sizes in total. When it's the biggest, press this switch. He poked the bird's eye with his finger. Right here. Then almost instantly, the little bird that was the size of half a palm shrank back to the size of a fingernail. Yi Huanyan was indeed very interested in this gadget, but she was thinking about Ling Han's safety at the moment, so her mind was not on it. She only took a quick look at 2 of the gadgets, which could be considered as giving He Chao Chuan face. After watching his demonstration, she was ready to leave. This is quite interesting, but don't move. The moment she raised her head, her voice was suddenly interrupted. At the same time, her left shoulder was pressed down by a hand. She was stunned and her body stiffened. What's wrong? Sister, there's a little bug in your hair. Don't move, I'll remove it for you. When she heard the word bug, Yi Huanyan's face paled. What bug? I think it's a little spider. Wait, don't be afraid. He Chao Chuan's voice was very gentle. One of his hands was carefully fiddling with the bangs on his forehead. The unique smell of sunshine that belonged to a teenager filled the air. Yi Huanyan caught a glimpse of his toes moving towards her from the corner of her eye. Are you done? Yi Huanyan's tone returned to its usual calmness. Not yet. Wait a minute. I think it should be done. Yi Huanyan took a step back without a trace. At the same time, she raised her hand and flicked He Chao Chuan's forehead. You want to take advantage of your sister? If I tell Uncle He, your ears will be twisted off, little brother Chao Chuan. She looked at him with a half smile. From this angle, He Chao Chuan was just about to kiss her forehead. Chapter 420. Hiss. He Chao Chuan covered his forehead and sucked in a breath of cold air. Sister, you hit me so hard. All right, the joke is over. You should know the church. I have something to do, so I won't play with you anymore. Yi Huanyan raised her eyebrows and turned to leave. I'm not joking. He Chao Chuan's voice came from behind. Sis, I'm serious. What are you serious about? You little brat. I'm 25 years old. I'm a few years past the legal age for marriage. I have my own company and house. I'm a rational man with an independent personality, sis. I didn't say you weren't. Yi Huanyan finally burst out laughing. She turned around helplessly. What are you trying to say? Seeing her laugh, He Chao Chuan suddenly restrained his expression and looked at her seriously. Sis, be my girlfriend. I'm serious. Yi Huanyan stared at him blankly. Then the corners of her mouth twitched. Stop joking. You know that I'm married. I have a son. You can get a divorce if you're married. It's fine if you have a son. Nanao and I will get along very well, don't you think? All right, stop. Yi Huanyan couldn't stand it anymore. Why was this little brat making fun of her when the elders were joking? Was there an end to it? I really have something to do. I don't have time to play with you. Go play with Nano. With that, she walked towards the north gate. If one looked closely, one could see that she was in a hurry. After running a distance, Yi Huanyan covered her face and realized that her face was burning. She was already 32 years old. How could she blush when she heard a little brat say something on a whim? How shallow. The north gate was not far away. As soon as she walked out of the gate, she saw a familiar figure on a fishing boat in the distance. He was wearing a leather fishing jumpsuit. His hair was wet, giving him a mature charm. The closer she got to him, the more she could feel the masculine scent coming from him. Seeing that Yi Huanyan had arrived, Ling Han put down the fish in his hand and waved vigorously at her with a warm smile, just like 10 years ago. Yi Huanyan also waved her hand and smiled at him. Compared to little fresh meats, she still preferred the older uncle type. As for why she blushed when she heard He Chaochuan's unsure confession, it was probably because she had never heard anyone formally confess to her since she was young, and that awakened her maiden heart a little. She walked towards the beach with firm steps. Standing next to Ling Han was John, a fisherman who had lived on the island for many years. Later, he was hired by Gu Hong and Wen Yi to be a guard at the north gate of the villa. Despite his age, he still acted like an old urchin. At this moment, he seemed to be saying something to Ling Han, and he started laughing to himself. He even whistled loudly at Yi Huanyan. "John, your teeth are almost all falling out, and you're whistling at a woman. Don't you feel ashamed?" Yi Huanyan shouted at him. John spoke in fluent English. He was not angry when he heard that. Instead, he laughed out loud. "Dora, I told Leon again. If I were 20 years younger, I would definitely pursue you." Yi Huanyan laughed even more heartily. "I don't like the fishy smell on you. Even if you were 30 years younger, I wouldn't want you." John seemed a little dissatisfied when he heard that. He rubbed his chin and muttered to himself for a moment. Suddenly, he bent down and grabbed a big fish that was thrown on the boat. He directly stuffed it into Ling Han's fisherman overalls. Ling Han could not dodge in time. He staggered 2 steps and jumped off the fishing boat. It took him a lot of effort to shake the poor fish out. The fish struggled desperately on the beach, splashing sand all over Yi Huanyan. John's laughter came from the fishing boat. "Leon smells like fish now. Do you like it?" "Ha ha ha." Yi Huanyan glared at him, then jumped and climbed onto Ling Han's neck. She laughed and shouted at John, "I like it. He's my man. Not to mention the fishy smell. I'd like to be sprayed with cuttlefish juice." Ling Han's hands were stained with fish scales. At this moment, he was afraid that she would fall, so he had no choice but to hold her legs. There was helplessness in his eyes, but there was also affection in them. Yi Huanyan seemed to be particularly obedient today. He did not know why. When Yi Huanyan and Ling Han returned to the villa, Uncle he had already left. There was food left for the two of them in the kitchen. The two of them pulled up a small folding stool and sat at the entrance of the kitchen with their bowls in their hands. They ate while sunbathing. Perhaps Yi Huanyan's sitting posture was too bold, or perhaps the small folding stool was too small for Ling Han. The servants passing by all covered their mouths and snickered. "My parents didn't ask you to come over for lunch. Don't mind them. I see that my mother's attitude is much better when she mentions you. Uncle he is a friend of my parents, and I'm not very close to them. Anyway, you won't have anything to talk to them about. It'll be more peaceful if you don't go." "I know." Ling Han's slender fingers held the edge of the bowl. He picked up a piece of pork rib and placed it in Yi Huanyan's bowl. The sun shone on his brows, and he narrowed his eyes slightly. He looked even more gentle. Yi Huanyan was a little restless. She bit her chopsticks and thought for a few seconds. "I'll look for you at your place tonight." Ling Han raised his brows. "Oh, why are you looking for me?" Yi Huanyan blushed. "You already know the answer." Ling Han put down the bowl and chopsticks and patted her head. "Wear more clothes when you come. Don't you usually ask me to wear less?" Yi Huanyan was a little puzzled. Ling Han had already stood up and leaned over to block her eyes from the sun. She could hear his breathing and his deep, seductive voice. "I prefer the feeling of taking my clothes off slowly." Even after he had walked far away, Yi Huanyan felt her blood rush to her head. That feeling of blood rushing to her veins did not go away for a long time. He was really an expert at flirting. Because Wen Yi had deliberately distracted Ling Han from the incident at noon, Yi Huanyan deliberately did not go to the East Court at dinner time. When Ji Xiaoye called, she also said that she had a headache and wanted to eat alone in the house. Ji Xiaoye lowered her voice over the phone. Yan Yan, are you angry with Mom because you didn't invite Ling Han for lunch? At a time like this, you can't go against your parents. Haven't you seen those stories where the more you go against your parents, the more they end up breaking up the couple? I didn't go against them previously. I went along with them in all sorts of ways. But didn't I still end up breaking up the couple? It seems that my mom needs to see my iron fist. Damn, aren't you childish? Iron fist? You're still talking about me? Aren't you childish? Let me interview you, Ji Xiaoye. Because of the kiss that my brother didn't kiss, you slept in separate rooms for 3 days, right? Didn't you pretend to be generous in the bamboo forest? How did you know? Ji Xiaoye raised her voice a few octaves, but the next second, she lowered it. I didn't tell you. Did Gu Sinian tell you? Do you think my brother will talk to me about his private life? I'm not a pervert. Then the villa is only so big, and the South Court and West Court are so close together. Do you think that the servants don't talk? I'm so free. Is it strange that I would listen to a few words of gossip? Damn. Chapter 4:21. Through the phone, Yi Huanyan could imagine Ji Xiaoye blushing furiously on the other end of the line. Unfortunately, there was a table full of people, including her parents-in-law, so it was not good for her to lose her temper. She laughed and threw herself on the bed. Haha. Hurry up and clean up your mess. My mom probably already knows that you and my brother are sleeping in separate rooms, so don't try to persuade my mom. I'm not going. Gu Nianji did not speak for a long time. When she spoke again, her tone was faint. You're really not coming? I said I'm not going. Dad just said that after dinner tonight, he would like Ling Han to have a chat with him in the fencing room. Damn, Yi Huanyan pursed her lips. Don't lie to me. Gu Ling had been a gold medal fencer when she was young. Her snow-white sword dance was airtight. If you lie, I'll give your brother away. Damn, she cursed in her heart. The fencing room was between the east and north gardens. It was built like a small gymnasium with sliding doors. It looked a little like a Japanese izakaya, but it was taller and had a much wider view. Yi Huanyan walked around, trying to find a place to hide, but found that the room was empty. There were only 4 walls. She heard the respectful voices of the servants talking to Gu Ling at the door. She also heard Ling Han thanking her. Yi Huanyan was quick-witted. She opened the closet and hid inside. Not long after, she heard footsteps outside. Have you practiced fencing before? It was Gu Ling's voice. It sounded a little different from usual. Yi Huanyan was stunned. For a moment, she could not tell what was different. I joined a club in university and practiced for a while. I'm probably showing off in front of an expert. Ling Han's voice was neither servile nor overbearing, but it was very respectful. Then, Yi Huanyan realized that Gu Ling's voice was different from usual. Gu Ming coldly snorted. Although he didn't say anything, this cold snort was enough to make people tremble in fear. She had been back for 6 years and had never heard Gu Heng speak in such a tone in front of her. There was a rustling sound outside, probably from someone putting on a protective suit. Yi Huanyan couldn't help but open a small gap in the closet and peek out from inside. Standing on the tatami were 2 men in white fencing sportswear. From their height, it was easy to tell that the man with his back facing Yi Huanyan was her father, Gu Heng. Ling Han stood 3 meters away with a helmet in his hand. He had a serious expression on his face. Uncle, please enlighten me. Because they were so close, Yi Huanyan accurately heard Gu Ming's cold snort, as if he was very contemptuous of the opponent in front of him. After putting on the helmet, the sword in his hand danced in the air, glittering with cold light. The light reflected on Yi Huanyan's face, scaring her so much that she couldn't help but cover her face. After getting into position, Yi Huanyan held the closet door with one hand, ready to rush out at any time. As long as she felt that the situation was not right, she would immediately shout, "Dad, don't kill him." For her sake, Gu Heng would at least spare Ling Han's life. There was the sound of swords colliding, and the battle began. Gu Heng's attack was very fierce. As soon as he attacked, he forced Ling Han back. What surprised Yi Huanyan was that although Ling Han was at a disadvantage, he was not beaten up badly. He maintained a state of only defending and not attacking. No matter how Gu Hong attacked, he was able to resolve it. This level was definitely not at the level where he had just joined a club in university. He was too humble. Yi Huanyan retracted her hand and obediently crouched in the closet to watch. Gu Hong seemed to be a little impatient. He swung his sword a few times to confuse Ling Han's vision, then instantly attacked from below. Fortunately, Ling Han reacted quickly and used his footwork to avoid this attack. However, he still couldn't avoid Gu Heng's sword from piercing through the right sleeve of his protective suit, instantly opening up a hole. Fencing was a very skillful competitive sport, but Gu Hong obviously learned how to fight, which was completely different from Ling Han's obvious method of stopping after a certain point. Yi Huanyan's heart jumped to her throat. She held the closet door again. From her angle, Gu Hong suddenly attacked the corner fiercely. Just as she was about to open the door, she suddenly heard an old and sorrowful voice. Yan has been with you for more than 10 years, longer than she has been with us. You didn't take good care of her. Why should we, as parents, give you another chance? Do you know that if she had died 5 years ago, who would have given me and Wen-yi another chance? Yi Huanyan was stunned. Her hand that was holding the closet door suddenly froze. Ling Han was obviously distracted. With a clang, the long sword was knocked down and fell on the tatami with a muffled sound. Ling Han staggered and fell into a corner in a sorry state. Gu Heng's sword was pressed against his neck. He said coldly, "I have every reason to let this sword pass through here." The atmosphere was deadlocked. Ling Han was wearing a protective mask, and half of his body was blocked by Gu Hong. Yi Huanyan couldn't see his expression and movements. In this situation, it wasn't appropriate for her to appear, so she could only worry. After a while, Ling Han's voice sounded in the room. It was a little hoarse and weak. "I can't refute that. My daughter has been by your side for so many years. How did she treat you? And how did you treat her? If I wanted to investigate, I could find out all the details. Do you think that after knowing all this, I would still agree to let you take her away?" Gu Hong was very angry. His hand that held the sword trembled slightly. It was the pain and self-blame of a father who found out that his daughter had suffered so much but couldn't do anything about it. "It's because of me that she has suffered so much that no one in this world is more suitable than me to spend the rest of her life with her." Arrogant and conceited, her injuries can only be healed by my guilt and my atonement. The shadow in her heart can only be illuminated by me. "Uncle, I can't part with her. What if I insist that you leave? I believe that you have the ability to do so. But if you chase me away once, I can come back again. I still have half a lifetime to wait for her, to wait for you and Auntie's response. Unless you really stab me now. Do you think I don't dare?" Drops of blood dripped from his white clothes. The bright red color was eye-catching. It rolled onto the tatami and instantly soaked the mat, turning it into a dark and oppressive brown. Yi Huanyan's heart clenched. His body seemed to weigh 1,000 kilograms, and he couldn't move. His throat seemed to be blocked by something, and he couldn't speak. Ling Han, on the other hand, was very calm. He held the sword in his hand, and bright red blood flowed continuously. It was a ghastly sight. "You can kill me, but not now. You can't let Yan know. I'm afraid that she will be sad. Uncle, Auntie, and Xin Yan are now her few relatives. Compared to me, you are much more important to her." Chapter 4:22. In the end, Gu Heng's sword did not fall. When he said in a hoarse voice, "You can go. For Yin Yan's sake, I will consider it." Yi Huanyan felt that her father was really old. She had never seen her father when he was young, but she had heard from Gu Xinian that he did not care about anyone's opinion. He lived a carefree and unrestrained life. Just because the mercenaries injured Wen Yi's arm, he could cut off all the tendons in their hands and feet. He was tyrannical and cold. But now he compromised for her. The sound of the door opening and closing rang twice, one opening and the other closing. Gu Heng was the only one left in the room. He removed the protective mask on his head and sat cross-legged. After a long time, he said in a low voice, "Yan Yan, isn't it stuffy in the closet?" Yi Huanyan's expression stiffened. She slowly opened the closet and climbed out. "Father, come and sit." Gu Heng's expression was normal. He looked at her lovingly and patted the cushion beside him. She was stunned and moved over. The father and daughter sat side by side, leaning against the wall and looking at the empty room. "When did you know I was in here?" "When I opened the closet. I knew as soon as I came in." Gu Heng's voice was very low, as if he had experienced many vicissitudes of life. "So powerful? I don't believe it. A Bao must have told you at the door." Gu Ming did not explain. He wiped the sword with a cloth. "Why aren't you saying anything? Are you blaming me for hurting him?" Yi Huanyan quickly shook her head. "I know you have already been merciful. If he had used all his strength, if he had not deliberately left some leeway in his hand, he would have been injured or killed. How could there be a compromise of only 2 drops of blood? It is said that it is easier to calm down when one is old. Your mother and I are getting angrier as we live. In the past few years, we have been arguing more than before. The older we are, the worse we are. I'm sorry, Dad." Yi Huanyan was a little upset. "If it weren't for my mother, she wouldn't always quarrel with you." She knew that Wen Yi had a bad temper, but she was not an unreasonable person. All these years, most of the reasons for quarreling with Gu Heng were because of her. When she was wandering outside, she blamed him for not coming to Huxin County earlier. When she came back, she blamed him for not bringing her back earlier, causing her to change beyond recognition. "It's not your fault, Yan Yan. After you came back, although your mother and I still quarreled, it didn't end in silence. Those years when you weren't back, I really couldn't do anything." In those years, she had a daughter who was as old as Yi Huanyan. She had brought her to the villa in the hope that she could make up for Wen Yi. However, as time went by, Gu Duo grew up, and Wen Yi felt sad. She always thought that somewhere overseas, her daughter should be around the same age. It was time for her to go to school, right? Was she studying? Was she bullied? Was she hungry? So, Yan Yan, your return is the greatest comfort to me and your mother in this life. Every year on your birthday, your mother would make a wish for you, hoping that you would come back earlier. She said that it was her only wish in life, but people are always greedy, Gu Heng sighed. His brows were dyed with the vicissitudes of life and helplessness. After you came back, we would think that it would be great if you could be healthy and happy. How could you come back covered in wounds? Dad, aren't I fine? But you still suffered for 5 years. It's all in the past. You and my mother have to relax. I'm already much happier than the average person. I can be with the person I like, Naneo, and you guys. I'm very satisfied. Yes, one should be satisfied. After you get married, you still have to come back often to see me and your mother. Dad, you agreed. Yi Huanyan was at a loss. Gu Heng's attitude was so strong. In the past few days since Ling Han came, he had been treating him like air. Today, it was rare for him to speak, so he stabbed him. It didn't seem like he agreed. Gu Heng seemed to have thought of something, and a trace of warmth appeared in her eyes. She didn't answer Yi Huanyan's question directly. Nian should have told you about what happened between me and your mother. After all, I'm not in a position to blame Ling Han. We all have our ridiculous times when we were young. Yi Huanyan shifted the cushion and leaned on Gu Heng's shoulder. She smiled. My brother said that back then, you ran away after seducing my mother. My mother carried my brother and chased you across the Atlantic Ocean. After running through more than 10 countries, she finally caught you and forced you to take responsibility. When Gu Heng was young, he was a playboy. When he saw a girl, he couldn't help but go up to her. In addition, he became famous at a young age. He was a legend. so he had many admirers. He had many women around him. It was easy to say, but if you put yourself in Wen Yi's shoes, it was actually very torturous. It was rare for her to have a chance to be alone with her father. She listened to him talk about many interesting things from back then. There were even some that Wen Yi didn't know about. The two of them chatted for a long time, as if they were exchanging secrets. After leaving the fencing room, Yi Huanyan ran to North Court. She started banging on the door. She couldn't wait to tell Ling Han the good news. The haze of the past few days had made them unhappy, and Gu Heng's understanding of him was undoubtedly a stimulant that could reinvigorate them. Ling Han, let me tell you, my father. The second half of Yi Huanyan's sentence was stuck in her throat when she saw the person who opened the door. She swallowed a mouthful of saliva. Why are you here? Why are you here? He Chaochuan was standing at the entrance wearing baggy pants and a striped t-shirt. He looked at her with a half-smile. I'm a guest. What's wrong with me staying here? Sis? Didn't Uncle He go back? Ji Xiaoye had made it very clear on the phone. My father went back, but that doesn't mean I went back. He Chaochuan opened the door. Aunt Gu asked me to stay here for a while. It just so happens that I can take photos of all the ancient buildings here. It'll make it easier for me to design the opera house. He stepped aside to let her in. What are you doing here, so late at night? Come in. Yi Huanyan hesitated and stood at the door. Are you alone? He's in the bedroom. He's taking a shower, I think. Hey, where are you going? He Chaochuan's eyes followed Yi Huanyan's back view as she went upstairs. He couldn't stop her. The sound of running water in the bathroom washed away the bloodstains on the tiles. Ling Han looked at the wound on his shoulder. It wasn't too serious, and he had already bandaged it. After putting on a bathrobe, he turned off the tap and grabbed a towel to dry his hair before walking out of the bathroom. When he walked to the end of the bed, he frowned slightly. There was an obvious bulge in the bedsheets. When he saw the familiar gray coat on the sofa, the coldness in his eyes melted a little and was dyed with a layer of warmth. He quietly lifted a corner of the quilt and sat under it. Someone who had been hiding under the quilt for a while gasped for breath. She poked her head out from under the quilt against his chest. Her little face was red from the suffocation. She smiled and rubbed his chin. Are you surprised? How long have you been hiding? Don't you feel stuffy? Ling Han rubbed her head. Before he finished speaking, a certain part of his body was eroded by a feeling of rubbing. Her movements were a little clumsy, but it was very comfortable to the touch. Immediately, his body started to burn and the burning sensation spread throughout his body. Her hands moved a few times as if she had found the trick and became more familiar with it. He groaned and the veins on his forehead were faintly discernible. His slender and clean fingers grasped the blanket tightly. Amidst the chaos, the blanket covering her body slid to her side, revealing a face that was flushed red from either boredom or embarrassment. Her hands were moving up and down rhythmically, without sparing any effort. He grabbed the bedsheet under him and struggled to raise his body to look at her. His voice was hoarse as he called out her name. He seemed to be very impatient. Yi Huanyan blinked at him. That's not all the reward. As she said that, she bent down and gently sucked on that burning spot, slowly sending it deeper. His hard body was wrapped in a soft, moist heat. Ling Han's entire body tensed up. His face flushed red, and the veins on the back of his hand that was gripping the bedsheet popped out. He couldn't help but groan. She slowly inhaled and exhaled, a little clumsily. However, it was this clumsiness that made Ling Han even more excited. He propped up his upper body. His bloodshot eyes were filled with surprise as he stared blankly at the woman beneath him. This woman who was willing to give him a chance to start over no matter how much she had hurt him was kind and gentle. After an unknown amount of time, Yi Huanyan was still inhaling and exhaling calmly. She didn't realize that a certain person's body had reached its limit and urgently needed to speed up. My mouth is so numb. She pulled back and touched her chin. She couldn't help but mutter. Ling Han's eyes lit up. He couldn't care less about her reward anymore. He flipped over and pressed her down. He used his knees to push her legs apart and drove straight in. He started to move roughly. She cried out in alarm. Her fine black hair scattered to the end of the bed, and her legs trembled in the air as he moved. His huge size made her feel a little pain. After the temporary pain disappeared, a numbness that seeped into her bones penetrated her entire body. It was like an electric current that ran through every nerve cell in her body. She hooked her arms around his neck and kissed him passionately. Their bodies intertwined, and they almost merged into one. They reached the most passionate state and couldn't bear to part. They maintained this position for a long time. Both of them were in a sweaty state. They lay at the end of the bed in each other's arms and looked at the starry sky outside the window. Her hair stuck to her cheeks. It was a little sticky, but she didn't want to move. She just wanted to nestle in his arms like this. It would be good to spend the rest of her life like this. Where are we going for our honeymoon after the wedding? My brother and Xiao Yu were only halfway through their world trip when they were caught to prepare for the wedding. If we really want to hold our wedding, we'll probably have to wait until the middle of next year. Then let's go for our honeymoon before the wedding. Ling Han brushed the hair away from her face. His voice was still full of lust. When your parents agree, we'll go for our honeymoon. Okay. Yi Huanyan blinked. She turned around and hugged his neck. Just as she was about to kiss him, she suddenly thought of something and said hesitantly, "But there's still the company. In half a month, Pleasure will be preparing for the annual meeting. After the new year, there will be all kinds of cocktail parties to attend. You should be very busy." "That's not important." When she heard this, Yi Huanyan was stunned. She lowered her head and snuggled into his arms. "That's great. It's great now." Ling Han patted her back. His voice was gentle and full of affection. "Go to sleep. When you fall asleep, I'll carry you to take a shower." He had pursued his career for more than 10 years. In the eyes of others, he was already at a strategically advantageous position. He was also young and had a successful career. However, when he really sat in this position, he realized that it was lonely at the top. No one could share the joy of his victory, and no one could share the sorrow of his failure. So everything he did seemed to be meaningless. We can't change the world. Or, rather, only a very few of us can change the world. So, our biggest pursuit is actually only a lifetime of happiness. Chapter 4:24. With Gu Hong as her shield, Yi Huanyan should have been able to enter and leave Bay Garden freely. However, Yi Chaochuan was also living in Bay Garden. Yi Huanyan was so excited to tell Ling Han the good news that she forgot that there was a third wheel in the house as soon as she entered the room. "Xiaochuan, did you sleep well last night?" At the breakfast table, when he looked at Yi Chaochuan lovingly, Yi Chaochuan slowly drank his porridge. "Not bad. It was a little noisy next door last night, so I didn't fall asleep until dawn." Yi Huanyan suddenly coughed and choked on the milk. "Next door." Yi frowned and glanced at Ling Han strangely. "What were you doing last night? Why didn't you sleep?" Ling Han lowered his head awkwardly, as if he was thinking of a response. "I was snoring." I could hear Brother Ling Han's snoring through the wall. "Oh my God, it was so loud." Yi Chaochuan looked at Ling Han and Yi Huanyan faintly. "It seems that I'll have to sleep in another room tonight." When he didn't understand and glanced at Ling Han with disdain. "Why are you still snoring? Are you feeling unwell? There's a doctor in the villa. You should go for a checkup this afternoon." "Yes, I heard that he snores because of respiratory problems." Brother Ling Han should be in his 40s. All middle-aged men are like this. Yi Huanyan anxiously said, "He's just too tired these past 2 days. You always make him do manual labor like mining or fishing. How can he not snore?" With that said, she glared at He Chaochuan. But he didn't care and stuck his tongue out at her and made a funny face. Ji Xiaoya had been holding back her laughter for a long time and couldn't hold it in anymore. She said meaningfully, "I don't think it's a respiratory problem. He's just too tired during the day, and at night, Yi Huanyan couldn't even take care of herself, but someone was adding insult to injury." She looked at Ji Xiaoya. "Xiaoyu, my brother seems to be very busy with work these past 2 days. He's been in the study in the middle of the night. If this goes on, his body can't take it." Ji Xiaoya's face paled. Sure enough, the topic was directed to her. When Yi anxiously asked, "What work?" "Nian, didn't you give your job to Gulu? Your most important task now is to quickly give birth to a chubby granddaughter for me with Xiaoyu." Chubby granddaughter. Yi Huanyan looked meaningfully at Ji Xiaoya and smiled. "Good luck." "Who asked you to add insult to injury?" Almost everyone in the villa knew about the argument between Gu Xinian and Ji Xiaoya, but no one dared to tell Wen Yi. She had been looking forward to seeing a granddaughter every day. If she knew that the two of them were sleeping in separate beds, it would be terrible. During breakfast, she listened to Wen Yi nagging Gu Xinian to hurry up and give birth to a child. Ji Xiaoya finally finished eating and came out of Yi's court. She let out a long sigh. "Your mother nags much more than my mother. Please be considerate. My mother is an old lady in her 60s. It's one thing for her to take good care of herself, but it's also true that she's old. It's all because of you." Ji Xiaoya glared at her. "It's just the two of us. We're just two unlucky people now. Let's not criticize each other, okay?" "That's true." Ji Xiaoya agreed with the term unlucky people. She patted Yi Huanyan's arm and pouted at the young man who was holding a DSLR camera in the distance. "Since we're both unlucky people, then this can only be considered a romantic calamity, right?" Yi Huanyan waved the text message in front of her. "A temporary measure in exchange for conditions. This young man is very scheming." Ji Xiaoya clicked her tongue when she saw the content of the text message. The content of the text message was concise and clear. She received it at the dining table. She didn't even have time to prepare before being threatened. "Sister, promise to accompany me to the villa, and I'll save your ex-husband from manual labor." "How about that? What if I don't agree? Then I can only guard the door of Bei Yuan every night to sleep." This little brat was full of tricks. Ji Xiaoya rubbed her chin and sighed. "It's so good to be young. Threats and promises. If you hadn't met Ling Han, I'm afraid you'd have done it." Yi Huanyan rolled her eyes at her. "That's what you're really thinking. Do you regret following my brother? Fine, pretend I didn't say anything." For the whole morning, after breakfast, she accompanied Yi Chaochuan to walk around the huge Four Seasons villa. He held a DSLR camera in his hand and kept taking pictures along the way. He would talk to her from time to time, but she would only reply perfunctorily and ignore him. "Sister, look here." Yi Huanyan was leaning against a tree in a daze. When she heard the sound, she subconsciously looked up and saw He Chaochuan's camera pointing at her. With a click, he took a picture. She wanted to cover her face, but it was too late. "Perfect," He Chaochuan smiled at her, showing his big white teeth. "Sister, you look so cute when you're in a daze. I don't think it's appropriate to use the adjective cute for a 32-year-old woman." Yi Huanyan rolled her eyes at him. "Then what adjectives do you like? Mature, charming? Sexy? Stop, stop, stop. Aren't you taking pictures? Are you done? If you're done, go back for lunch." "Hey, sister, are you still angry with me because of what happened this morning?" "I'm helping you." "Helping me with what? You pulled me out to walk around with you to help me. What kind of brain do you youngsters have? Everything will be different if you think about it from a different perspective. Although you want to walk around with me, I can ask your ex-husband to come out with us in the afternoon. Isn't this a good thing for you?" Yi Huanyan didn't believe that this little rascal would really help her. She only believed the threat at the end of the text message. As for the conditions of the exchange, she didn't believe it at all. Hearing this, She glanced at him perfunctorily. Is that so? Do you really have the ability? I'll wait and see. How could Wen-yi allow Ling Han to accompany her? She couldn't wait to eat 3 meals a day separately from him. All right? Ever since Ling Han came to the villa, other than the 3 meals, she could only secretly go to the North Court to look for him at night. Seeing her legal husband acting like a thief, she was speechless. Sister, don't look down on youngsters. Young people of our generation are very trustworthy. I'll definitely do what I promised. He Chaochuan patted his chest and promised. When Yi Huanyan turned to look at him, he pressed the shutter and took a few more pictures. Then he smirked at her. This one looks good too. Yi Huanyan was so angry that she wanted to smash his stupid camera. During lunch, He Chaochuan really kept his promise. He requested that Ling Han help him carry the tripod and asked Wen-yi to lend him. Wen-yi originally wanted to give him a servant or Gu Min to help, but he refused. I heard that Brother Ling Han won a photography competition before. He should be very knowledgeable about these things and can give me a lot of advice. He Chaochuan acted spoiled to Wen-yi. Aunt Gu, can you lend me for a while? Do you feel bad for your son-in-law? I'm your eldest nephew. You watched me grow up. Yi Huanyan only felt goosebumps all over her body. Chapter 4:25. He Chaochuan's coquettishness obviously hit Wen-yi's maternal instincts, and she agreed without hesitation. She even reminded Ling Han not to be lazy and to help him carry the things. Her tone was no different from that of a servant. Yi Huanyan was a little angry. She originally wanted to help say a few words, but was stopped by Ling Han. After lunch, the sky was clear and the air was cool. The Four Seasons Villa's sycamore leaves fluttered in the wind, sprinkling the ground with a golden-yellow color. Walking on the road was like stepping on a golden blanket, as if they were in paradise. This position is pretty good. Let's take a picture here. Brother Ling Han, come over and help me take a picture. A tripod was placed in the center of Sycamore Avenue. Ling Han stood behind the tripod and leaned over slightly. His photography skills were very professional. He Chaochuan was wearing a black hoodie, blue crop jeans, and a pair of white shoes. He looked youthful and energetic. Just as he was about to press the shutter, the guy suddenly made a pause gesture. That, Brother Ling Han, you can take the picture later. After saying that, he suddenly ran out of the camera and pulled Yi Huanyan over. He put his arm around her shoulders and smiled at the camera. Take the picture, Brother Ling Han. Ling Han's hand that was holding the shutter tightened, and his eyes turned cold. Yi Huanyan was obviously struggling. She glared at He Chaochuan unhappily. What are you doing? Sis, it's just taking a picture. Let's go back and show it to Aunt Gu. You don't want me to go back and talk nonsense, right? Yi Huanyan was angry, but she couldn't do anything about it. Brother Ling Han, you can start taking the picture. He Chaochuan's voice came from afar. Ling Han took a deep breath. His gaze was deep as he said in a deep voice, it's done. As soon as she heard this, Yi Huanyan hurriedly broke free and ran towards Ling Han. After that, she kept her distance from He Chaochuan as if she was guarding against a thief. Fortunately, other than Wudong Avenue, He Chaochuan was seriously taking photos of the architecture and landscape layout. In the end, he could barely take care of the two of them. He removed the DSLR from the tripod alone and squatted in front of the church to take photos for a long time. Under the setting sun, Yi Huanyan leaned against Ling Han, sitting on the recliner in front of the church. Behind them was the Phoenix Tree Avenue. Golden leaves fell on her shoulders, and the autumn wind raised a chill. Ling Han wrapped his jacket around her shoulders. Ling Han, don't mind her. Uncle, he has a good relationship with my parents. Xiaochuan is not a bad person. She's just joking. Am I such a narrow-minded person in your eyes? You don't mind? Yi Huanyan's expression changed slightly, and 2 bumps appeared on her cheeks. If I say that I don't mind, will you think that I don't care about you? Ling Han suddenly asked. Huh? She was stunned. Actually, I do mind, but I don't mind anything else. I mind that he knows how to express his feelings to the person he likes at such a young age. When I was his age, I didn't manage my emotions well. I liked someone for so many years, but I never said it out loud. When we first met, I was about his age. Ling Han's voice, mixed with the sound of leaves rustling in the wind, inexplicably added a bit of charm. Yi Huanyan blushed and whispered, "When did you become so good at talking? Does this count as being good at talking?" "Yes." Yi Huanyan leaned on his shoulder with a red face and looked at the setting sun in the distance. The DSLR in the distance was tilted 2 inches, and the scene under the parasol tree was captured. The evening clouds were as beautiful as a painting. He Chachuan stayed in the villa for the next week to take pictures. Every day, he played the role of a big light bulb between Yi Huanyan and Ling Han. From time to time, he would show enthusiasm to Yi Huanyan and turn into a rose or robot bird. Yi Huanyan ignored him, but he never got tired of it. Ling Han didn't seem to have any reaction to his actions, at least in Yi Huanyan's opinion. The man who used to be a little energetic now seemed to be a different person. She didn't know whether it was because he trusted her or because he changed his personality. On the coastal highlands, when Yi wrapped her coat tightly and frowned at the group of people playing on the beach, Gu Heng, who was standing beside her, put his arm around her shoulder and said in a warm voice, "It's out of your expectations, isn't it?" Xiao Chuan's appearance didn't affect the relationship between the two of them. Ling Han also looked very calm and didn't have the same situation as the previous investigation. When Yi snorted, "Who knows? Maybe it's just because he doesn't dare to do anything in the villa. You know the information we found. This guy will go crazy just because Yen has a little contact with a man. It's fine if that singer is his first love, but he was even jealous of Xin Yen. This kind of person is too narrow-minded. So you admit that you deliberately arranged for Xiaochuan to be around Yen just to stimulate Ling Han. Kind of, but it's not just that." When Yi raised her eyebrows, "Maybe Yen really likes Xiaochuan. I like this child. Although she's young, she's responsible and has a good temper. Okay, the wind is blowing. They're going to have a barbecue on the beach tonight. Let's not join in the fun. Let's go back." Gu Heng hugged his wife, who was old but liked to throw tantrums like a child, and left the beach. Not long after, smoke rose from the beach. The suggestion of the barbecue on the beach was proposed by He Chaochuan. He lived in the Four Seasons villa all day long, and somehow heard about the quarrel between Gu Xinian and Ji Xiaoya. So he mentioned it to Yi Huanyan, saying that he wanted to mediate. Although Yi Huanyan didn't believe that he had the ability to completely resolve the knot in Ji Xiaoya's heart, she was treating a dead horse as a living one. Bringing the couple out for some fresh air could also liven up the gloomy atmosphere at the dining table and change the mood. The sky gradually darkened, and the 3 men were busy in front of the stove. Yi Huanyan and Ji Xiaoya sat on a woolen blanket with their coats wrapped around them. There was a bonfire in front of them. If my mom still doesn't agree, I plan to find a time to leave, with Ling Han first. Don't I want to leave too? If you leave, wouldn't I be walking into the muzzle of a gun if I leave too? Why are you leaving too? Is there something going on with Feng Shang? There's something going on, but it's also because my mom is rushing me too much. I'm a little feeling annoyed." Yi Huanyan finished the sentence. Ji Xiaoya was slightly stunned. "It's not that I find mom annoying. I don't mean anything by it. I just feel that I've been living a comfortable life for a long time, and I want to go back to work. I haven't reconciled with my brother yet." Yi Huanyan saw through her thoughts. "You don't want to go back to work. You want to avoid my brother, right?" "I'm not." Ji Xiaoya suddenly raised her head, as if she wanted to argue with all her might. Her gaze was exceptionally firm. The light of the fire reflected in her eyes, burning brightly. "Then let me ask you, if you knew that my brother and Fu Yingxiang had such a past before you married him, would you still agree to him?" Chapter 426. Ji Xiaoya was stunned. She frowned and said, "Why do you ask?" I agreed to marry him not because of anyone else, but because I want to be with him. Yi Huanyan smiled. Don't you know everything? You say so many things, but it doesn't seem to be the case. Are you angry with my brother, or are you angry with yourself? Ji Xiaoye fell silent. Her eyes, which were shining with confidence, dimmed. You're right. I'm angry with myself. I'm not jealous of Fu Xiang. Saying this may seem like I'm taking pleasure in her misfortune, but although I'm not jealous of her, I feel very upset. Back then, I also pestered Gu Xinian for a long time. At first, he didn't intend to accept me at all. I'm also not his type at all. But because of a freak combination of factors, this opportunity was given to me in the end. So when I saw them in the bamboo forest that day, for a moment, I actually felt that your brother had loved her before. Maybe he didn't even realize it himself. Those years when he lost Suku and their child were the lowest points in Gu Xinian's life. During that time, he couldn't walk out of the shadow. So he didn't talk about relationships and focused on his career. Fu Xiang also didn't rush him. She waited silently. But when enough time passed, she didn't have the time to be the first to appear in front of him. I beat you to it. I don't know if it's because I'm lucky or because Fu Xiang is too unlucky. When Gu Xinian walked out of the past, I happened to be by his side. So the person who appeared in the end was me and not her. But what if I didn't appear in the beginning? If Fu Xiang's family didn't meet with any mishaps, perhaps she and Gu Xinian would have been looking for you in Lan River. When it came to love, it was really about fate. No matter how early you came, how long you stayed with him, or how much you gave, it was not as good as the moment he opened his heart, the moment he opened his eyes. A smile entered his line of sight. Yi Huanyan frowned. After calming himself down, he decided not to follow her train of thought. Your logic is wrong. According to what you said, after my brother walked out of the shadows, he would fall in love with whoever was by his side. Then what kind of person would my brother be? Not just anyone can do it. Ji Xiaoye fiddled with the bonfire in a muffled voice. But Fu Xiang can. And if she's with Gu Xinian, she'll also be very happy. Actually, I'm not irreplaceable. I just can't do anything about this fact. Yi Huanyan's heart ached at her words. Finally, she glared at her and said, You're asking for it. People were always greedy. When they didn't have something, they would think that it would be great if they had it. After they had it, they would think that it would be great if the thing they had was perfect. But what exactly was perfection? Perhaps no one could say for sure. The chicken wings are ready. Come and eat. He Chaochuan's voice pierced through the night, accompanied by the crackling of the bonfire. The entire beach was filled with smoke. Do you drink? Sis. While speaking, he had already walked over with a plate of chicken wings and 2 bottles of beer in his other hand. He sat down on the woolen blanket. It's so hot here. Yi Huanyan rolled her eyes at him. Young man, I think you're just full of fire. It's really hot. You're sitting so close to the bonfire. Aren't you afraid that your clothes will be burned? Why don't you go swimming in the sea? Ji Xiaoye was in a bad mood, so she interrupted in a bad mood. She snatched the beer from his hand. Just nice to cool off the fire. Okay. As soon as he finished speaking, a white porcelain plate was stuffed into Yi Huanyan's hand. It was filled with fragrant chicken wings. The young man beside her took off his hoodie and threw it on the blanket. He shouted in the direction of the barbecue, Brother Xinian, Brother Ling Han, the sisters want to watch the winter swimming competition. Do you want to participate? When Yi Chaochuan took off his clothes, Ling Han had already dropped the barbecue in his hand and was walking over. When he heard this, he paused and looked at Yi Huanyan inquisitively. Before Yi Huanyan could speak, Ji Xiaoye downed half a bottle of beer and shouted in a delirious state, Young man, they're old. They're not as hot as you. Go, the sisters will watch you swim. Yi Chaochuan laughed heartily and ran toward the waves. As he ran, he threw away his sneakers and jeans along the way. In the end, he only wore a pair of boxers and plunged into the sea. Yi Huanyan was laughing when she suddenly saw a familiar figure walking into the sea. When she focused, her face slightly stiffened. Xiaoyu, what you just said might have triggered my brother. Gu Xinian was striding towards the waves. His slender fingers unbuttoned the bow tie on his shirt. After unbuttoning all the buttons, he threw the shirt on the beach. He threw away his suit pants and belt. Then followed He Chaochuan's figure into the waves. Ji Xiaoya was slightly stunned. She tightened her grip on the beer bottle, and her eyes were fixed on the sea. Yi Huanyan had a smile in her eyes. She looked back at the figure not far from her. Ling Han, don't go. He Chaochuan has too much energy, and my brother is sulking. Let's not join in the fun and let them play by themselves. Ling Han nodded. Yi Huanyan finally relaxed and turned to watch the fun. Suddenly, she clapped her hands and shouted, "Oh my God, the young are indeed different. Did you see that?" Xiaochuan seems to have turned around. Xiaochuan, you can do it. As soon as she finished speaking, a figure beside her also walked toward the sea. She couldn't call them back. Yi Huanyan was pulled back onto the blanket by Ji Xiaoya. You're still talking about me. Didn't you provoke someone? What did I say wrong? Didn't I just cheer them on? Ji Xiaoya pursed her lips. Sometimes a man's heart is as small as a needle's eye. Your brother's desire to win is abnormally strong. You think my brother's desire to win is not strong? Yi Huanyan pursed her lips. You're still watching the fun? Just wait and see. Tonight, they won't come back until they've done 800 rounds. He Chaochuan was really full of energy. After all, he was a young man in his early 20s. His body had an endless amount of energy. Gu Xinian, on the other hand, was holding his breath. He was angry that his wife had inexplicably neglected him for half a month. He had to win this competition to vent his anger. Ling Han was aiming for He Chaochuan. He had to prove to Yi Huanyan that physical strength had nothing to do with age. Instead, it was related to life experience. In short, the three of them had their own ulterior motives. They bobbed up and down on the sea, back and forth, looking like they wouldn't stop until they were dead. In the end, He Chaochuan lay on the beach. He was so tired that he was about to vomit. He waved his hands and said, "Brothers, I can't swim anymore. You guys continue. I'm tired. I'm going back to sleep." Ling Han and Gu Xinian were left paralyzed on the beach. Half of their bodies were still submerged in the water. A wave could drown the two of them, but neither of them had the strength to go ashore. Chapter 427. Yi Huanyan and Ji Xiaoya worked together to first drag Gu Xinian to the bonfire, and then they worked together to drag Ling Han up. The two men, who were almost 9 meters tall, lay side by side on the woolen blanket like corpses. They grabbed the beer bottles beside them and drank. The two women standing at the side were stunned. At this moment, they had become brothers in distress. "Hey, you two should go and grill some chicken wings. We haven't eaten yet, but you're already drinking." Yi Huanyan kicked Ling Han's calf and put her hands on her hips, showing a dissatisfied expression. Ling Han sat up and grabbed her arm, causing her to stumble and fall onto the blanket. He didn't care that there were two people around, and he went straight over and kissed her on the lips. The malty taste of the beer filled his mouth. Yi Huanyan blushed and pushed him down coquettishly. "You've drunk too much." Ling Han rested his head on his arm and looked at her with a silly smile. He laughed until she lost her temper. Gu Xinian watched from the side, and his eyes were hot. He glanced at his wife. Ji Xiaoya didn't notice his gaze at all. She looked at the barbecue and said, "Why don't I go and grill the chicken wings?" Gu Xinian took a deep breath, and his eyes dimmed. He got up and brushed off the sand on his body. His voice was low and hoarse. "I'll go. You two stay here." He picked up his clothes as he walked and put them on one by one. The expensive suit was crumpled from being thrown on the beach, and now he looked decadent when he put it on, like a destitute rich man. Yi Huanyan urged Ling Han to help, and the beach returned to its previous warmth. "After tonight, will the knot in your heart be untied?" Yi Huanyan asked. "Maybe." Suddenly, A high-pitched and sharp sound came from the distant sky. A beam of fire rushed into the night sky and exploded into colorful lights. "It's fireworks," Yi Huanyan exclaimed. "Who's setting off fireworks over there?" Ji Xiaoya was stunned for a moment before she stood up. One after another, the fireworks shot up into the night sky, illuminating the entire sky as if it was daytime. Flowers bloomed one after another, dazzling and gorgeous. "Xiaoyu." Yi Huanyan tugged at Ji Xiaoya's sleeve, indicating for her to look back. Gu Xinian was still wearing his unkempt suit, his tie hanging loosely on his collar. He was holding a candy cake in the shape of a yellow kitten in his hand as he walked towards her. "Happy birthday, Xiaoyu." There was a chargeable candle in the middle of the cake. The design was realistic, and the flame was glowing brightly. Ji Xiaoya was a little confused. "Birthday? Is today my birthday?" She hadn't celebrated her birthday for many years. At first, she wasn't in the mood, but later, she didn't have the time. This was her first birthday since she and Gu Xinian got married. She subconsciously looked at Yi Huanyan, who was standing beside her. Yi Huanyan quickly waved her hand and looked sullen. "Don't ask me. I don't know either. I've been too busy recently, and I don't remember your birthday." Ji Xiaoya's eyes suddenly became wet. She choked and said, "I haven't celebrated my birthday for many years." "What are you doing?" Gu Xinian held the cake and stood upright. "From now on, I'll celebrate your birthday with you every year. Make a wish, Xiaoyu." Ji Xiaoya awkwardly turned her head away and wiped her tears. "No, birthday wishes are all lies. Say it out loud. I'll definitely fulfill it for you." The fireworks were still blooming in the night sky. The candles on the birthday cake were slightly lit, illuminating their faces. They both looked warm. "Gu Xinian, I want to give birth to a child for you. This was sincere and not forced by anyone. I want to give birth to a child for you to make up for all the regrets in your life." "Okay." On the way back, Yi Huanyan asked Ling Han about the birthday cake and the fireworks. He Chao Chuan prepared it. He put it under the barbecue table early in the morning, and so did the fireworks. Yi Huanyan suddenly understood. "I was wondering how an old-fashioned person like my brother could create something romantic." Ling Han put his arm around her shoulder, and a deep look appeared in his eyes. Late at night, the lights in the Four Seasons Villa's North Court were still on. Ling Han knocked on the door of the guest room next door after taking a shower. He saw the suitcase on the floor. It was almost packed. "You're leaving already? If I don't leave, will I be an eyesore to you?" He Chao Chuan squatted beside the suitcase, brushing his teeth, and said vaguely, "Don't think that I don't know you. You pretend to be generous, but in fact, you hate me." "Oh." Ling Han crossed his arms, and the corners of his mouth curled up in a mocking smile. He Chao Chuan stuffed the toothbrush into his mouth and took out the DSLR from the suitcase. He waved it at Ling Han, then stood up and began to stomp his feet. His voice was even more vague, and it took him a long time to understand. "I asked you to take photos of me and my sister. What did you take? It's either blurry or just me. It's the kind that's so ugly that it can be used as an expression pack." Ling Han frowned and stared at the toothpaste foam that he threw everywhere. He took 2 steps back in disgust. "A good-looking person will never be ugly. Damn, don't push it. I haven't left yet. Maybe I'll stay for 10 days or half a month if I'm happy." Ling Han raised his eyebrows. "Really? If you don't hurry back, the design of the opera house will fall into the hands of someone else." He Chao Chuan was stunned when he heard this. It took him a long time to come back to his senses. He pointed the toothbrush at Ling Han angrily. "You plotted against me. You can say that I took drastic measures to deal with you. You despicable person. I'm going to tell Uncle Gu and Aunt Gu." Actually, if you really like Yan Yan so much, you wouldn't leave even if the design of the opera house fell into the hands of someone else, right? Ling Han stared at him expressionlessly. He Chao Chuan was still angry that he had been plotted against, so he turned a deaf ear to Ling Han's words. He stared at him with a livid expression. Do I know you that well? Why should I discuss my personal feelings with you? You graduated from Columbia University, majoring in architecture. Ling Han suddenly changed the topic. He Chaochuan's expression changed slightly. He stared at him for a long time. You already know? When did this happen? Are you asking when I found out that you were Ling Zhan's roommate, or when I found out that Ling Zhan liked Yan Yan? When you were taking photos at the church, Ling Han had the exact same pin on your camera bag. It was a custom-made commemorative pin for your graduating class. As for Ling Zhan's feelings, I've known for many years. How can you be so sure that he still misses you? Everyone in our family is devoted. Even for Ling Dongming, he had only loved Jiang Milan in his entire life. He Chaochuan stared at him in a daze. Suddenly, he felt his mouth go numb. After a while, he rushed into the bathroom like a gust of wind and spat out the toothpaste foam. When he came out again, his face was clean and his eyes were more serious. Okay, I admit that I came to check on Zhan's behalf. When I was in college, I knew that he had a woman he liked for a long time. Later, I found out that this woman was actually Sister Yan Yan. I wanted to help him see if he still had a chance. You want to try it yourself? Can I? Childish. After saying this, Ling Han turned around and left resolutely. Hey, who are you calling childish? A stomping voice came from the room. Chapter 4:28. When he Chaochuan left, apart from the two elders, a large group of people from the Gu family sent him off to the pier. He pulled an 18-inch suitcase and carried a backpack. Just like when he first arrived, he was confident and unrestrained. When he smiled, his dimples were revealed. Sister, I'm leaving. If you regret it, feel free to contact me. I'll immediately bring the betrothal gifts and a matchmaker to the mountain villa. I'll bring you a palanquin with 8 people to marry you. Yi Huanyan punched him on the shoulder. You don't have any other skills other than talking nonsense. Be careful that you won't be single in the future. He pretended to be in pain and squatted down with a hand on his chest. I'm hurt. Heart disease. It hurts so much. I can't walk. Quick, call the ambulance. Everyone laughed. Yi Huanyan lifted his leg and kicked him. Little brat, did I hit your heart? It was the other side. Are you mentally retarded? You hit my body, but it hurts my heart. After the joke was over, he Chaochuan squatted down and did a fist bump with Nanao. Uncle Chaochuan, the 9 consecutive rings are too simple. It's very boring. I've dismantled the robot bird, but it can only transform twice when assembled. What should I do? Let me see. Nanao placed the little robot bird, which was the size of a fingernail, in his palm and stared at it without blinking. The parts are worn out and there's a problem with the switch. You assembled it correctly. I'll bring you a better one next time. When is the next time? You adults are always so perfunctory. Oh, you know how to be perfunctory? He Chaochuan looked at the couple meaningfully. Looks like you've been perfunctory with our little young master all this time. Wait until your parents' wedding. I'll bring you a big robot bird as a toy. Nanao nodded in agreement. Ji Xiaoya and Gu Xinian had reconciled thanks to him, so the couple was very grateful to him. Gu Xinian didn't say anything, but Ji Xiaoya was a little reluctant to part with him. Don't be sad, Xiaochuan. It's not your fault that you like older people. You just didn't find the right person. I know a few friends who are a little older than Yan Yan. I'll introduce them to you someday. He Chaochuan's face paled. Don't, I'm just kidding. I'm leaving. The ship is here. Hey, keep in touch. My sisters are crying piteously for food after their divorce. He Chaochuan didn't even look back as he pulled his suitcase and jumped onto the ship like a gust of wind. He waved his hand and disappeared into the fog on the sea. During dinner, Yi Huanyan tactfully mentioned that she was preparing to return to China. Why are you in such a hurry to leave? How many days have you been back? The movie is almost done editing. I have to go back and take a look at it. If there are any problems, I have to quickly change it. I still have to leave some time to submit it for review and set the file. Can't Gucci do these things? When E was a little unwilling to give up. It's fine if you're shooting the movie yourself, but it's already done. These small things can be left to Gucci to handle. Mom, Yi Huanyan was a little helpless and secretly glanced at Gu Hong. Gu Hong coughed dryly and said in a deep voice, "Why are you stopping our daughter from doing what she wants to do? Being a director and screenwriter is her career. Look at you. Aren't you busy mining and looking for raw materials, for gems, all these years? I'm not stopping you." E pursed her lips and knew that she was in the wrong. She muttered, "But I'm still mining in my own villa. It's not 108,000 miles away from home. Mom, if you miss me, I can fly back at any time. Why do you say it as if I won't come back for a year?" Ji Xiaoya also tried to persuade Wen Yi. Only then did her expression soften a little. "Then Ling Han can stay." Yi Huanyan's heart skipped a beat when she heard this. She looked at her mother in disbelief. On the contrary, Gu Xinian looked like he understood everything. It was as if he already knew his mother's character like the back of his hand. Why would he stay? To help me mine? And to fish. Wen Yi's expression was matter-of-fact. Yi Huanyan exclaimed, "There are so many gems in Zhanbao Pavilion. Yesterday, Ben in the kitchen told me that there was enough fish to eat for a week." "Mom, what are you trying to do?" Wen Yi raised her eyebrows. "Good gems are 1 in a million. The gems in Zhanbao Pavilion are very ordinary. Don't you want me to personally make the jewelry for your wedding? It's 1 in a million and one of a kind?" Yi Huanyan wanted to refute, but Ji Xiaoya beat her to it. "Mom, do you mean that you agree to Ling Han and Yan Yan's wedding?" Yi Huanyan finally came back to her senses. She turned her head and pondered Wen Yi's words. She looked at her with an inquisitive expression. "Mom," Wen Yi pursed her lips and looked indifferent. "I didn't say that. I still need to think about it for a while. But since you're in such a hurry to leave, I'm sure you won't be able to find the gems, and I won't be able to eat the fish. I won't consider it. Look for it. He'll stay to look for it with you. I'll stay too." Yi Huanyan instantly put on a smile. She eagerly picked up a piece of braised fish and put it into Wen Yi's bowl. "Mom, eat more fish. It's good for your skin." Wen Yi's sudden change in attitude had a lot to do with Gu Hong. It was common sense that the conversation between peers would be more valued and understood by the other party. Therefore, no matter how much Yi Huanyan said, it was not as good as her father's help. After that day, Yi Huanyan never mentioned that she wanted Ling Han to rest. She couldn't wait for Ling Han to help find the gems that Wen Yi wanted in the mine as soon as possible. She also couldn't wait for Ling Han to pile up a mountain of fish that Ling Han went out to see. It would be best if he could fill up the entire freezer of the Four Seasons villa so that Wen Yi could eat to her heart's content. With Gu Heng's tacit approval, although Ling Han still lived in North Court, Yi Huanyan began to go in and out casually. She rarely returned to her own place and stayed in North Court every night. Late at night, in the study of East Court, Gu Hong was practicing calligraphy. She had just written a word, and her handwriting was very natural and unrestrained. He came in with a bowl of soup and placed it on the coffee table. "The kitchen has made tremella soup. Drink some." Gu Hong put down the writing brush and looked up. "You're in a good mood these days." Wen Yi smiled. "You've seen through me. My 7th brother sent me a ruby 2 days ago. I plan to use it to make Yan Yan's jewelry. I tell you, there won't be a more suitable gem than this. I can start work in a while." Gu Hong walked to the coffee table and sat down. She took the tremella soup and pretended to ask casually, "Yan Yan's jewelry? For the wedding? Of course, I should be able to finish it in half a year. I haven't exercised for a long time and my hands are rusty." Hearing this, Gu Hong glanced at her. "Since you found a suitable gem, why do you still let Ling Han go to the mine?" Wen Yi's face changed and she was choked. After a while, she straightened her neck and said, "Isn't it because I want to see if I can find a better gem?" If there were any gems in the mine, they would have been dug out by you in the past 10 years. Gu Heng glanced at her as if she knew what she was thinking. You want Yin Yan to stay in the villa with him for a while. In fact, you can tell me directly. Do you think I won't agree? That you're tuning in to the Echo Reads YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.